A quick freeze. A quick freeze is one of the easiest body language signs to miss because it happens before the person has time to control themselves. For a brief second, the body stops, the face tightens, the hands pause, and the eyes may hold still. It can look like nothing, but inside that pause, the brain may be rushing to choose the safest answer. This does not always mean someone is lying. Sometimes it means the question touched fear, shame, pressure, or a memory they were not ready to reveal. The body freezes because the nervous system senses danger, even if the danger is only emotional. It is the same survival response people have when they feel cornered, judged, exposed, or unsure how much truth is safe to give. You may notice it when someone is asked where they were, why they changed their behavior, what they really feel, or whether something bothered them. Before words come out, the body answers first. That tiny pause can reveal that the question landed deeper than expected. The most powerful part of this sign is that it often appears before the polished response. After the freeze, the person may smile, laugh, explain, or act normal again, but the first second already showed tension. That is why careful observers do not only listen to the answer, they watch the moment before the answer. A quick freeze is not proof of guilt, but it is a signal. It tells you there is pressure under the surface, and something about that question made the person's mind search for protection before expression. Fast answers may be rehearsed. Fast answers can feel convincing because they arrive with no hesitation, no confusion, and no visible struggle. But sometimes, that speed is exactly what makes them worth noticing. When someone responds too quickly to a serious question, especially a question that should require thought, emotion, or memory, it can mean the answer was prepared before the moment even arrived. This does not automatically mean the person is lying. Some people are naturally quick thinkers, and some questions are simple enough to answer instantly. But when the topic is sensitive, personal, or uncomfortable, a fast answer may reveal that the person has already practiced what they would say if they were questioned. The words come out smooth because they have been rehearsed in the mind many times. You may notice this when someone answers before you finish speaking, gives a perfect explanation with no natural searching, or sounds more polished than emotional. Real memories often have texture. People pause, correct themselves, remember small details, or speak with uneven rhythm. Rehearsed answers often sound clean, controlled, and strangely complete. The body may expose what the mouth tries to hide. Their voice may be steady, but their hands may tighten. Their face may smile, but their shoulders may rise. Their words may sound ready, but their eyes may check your reaction, trying to see whether you believe them. A fast answer becomes more revealing when it feels too neat for the situation. When someone should be thinking but already has the perfect response, it may mean they were not just answering you. They may have been waiting for this question, preparing their defense before the conversation even began. Sudden stillness. Sudden stillness is a quiet signal that something inside a person has shifted. One moment, they may be moving naturally, using their hands, shifting in their seat, or reacting with normal expression. Then, after a question, comment, or sudden realization, their body becomes unusually still. The hands stop, the face holds, the shoulders tighten, and the usual flow of movement disappears. This matters because the body often goes still when the mind feels pressure. Movement is natural when someone feels safe. Stillness can appear when the nervous system senses risk even before the person fully understands what they are feeling. It is the body's way of reducing attention, avoiding mistakes, and preparing for the next move. You may see this when someone hears a name they were not expecting, when a hidden topic comes up, when they are asked to explain something, or when they realize you noticed more than they wanted you to notice. Their words may continue, but the body becomes quieter, as if it is trying not to reveal anything else. Sudden stillness can show fear, guilt, anger, shock, attraction, or emotional restraint. The meaning depends on the situation, but the message is usually the same. Something touched a nerve. A relaxed person does not usually become stiff for no reason. The strongest clue is contrast. If someone has been expressive and suddenly turns controlled, that change is worth watching. It may not prove deception, but it reveals pressure. In that frozen calm, the body may be saying what the mouth is working hard to manage, especially when their silence feels heavier than their words, and their eyes begin guarding every reaction carefully. Feet reveal interest before the face. Feet reveal interest before the face because the face is trained to perform, but the lower body is harder to control. People can force a smile, hold eye contact, nod politely, or say the right words, but their feet often point toward what the mind truly wants. This is why careful observers look below the table, not just at the expression. When someone is interested, their feet often turn toward the person, place, or opportunity that has their attention. Even in a group, the body may face everyone, but the feet quietly choose one direction. That small angle can reveal attraction, curiosity, comfort, or emotional investment before the person admits anything with words. The opposite is just as revealing. If someone's face looks engaged, but their feet point toward the door, hallway, phone, or another person, part of them may already be trying to leave. They may be smiling out of politeness while their body prepares an exit. This does not always mean dislike. It can mean tiredness, pressure, distraction, discomfort, or the desire to escape a conversation that feels too demanding. Feet are powerful because they are connected to instinct. The body naturally orients toward reward and away from threat. Before people explain what they feel, their lower body may already be moving toward safety, interest, or freedom before they notice it. The strongest clue is direction. Watch where the feet point when someone laughs, listens, answers, or becomes quiet. If the face says yes but the feet keep turning away, something is divided inside them. The mouth may be staying kind, but the feet may already be telling the truth. Toes toward the exit. Toes toward the exit often mean the body is preparing to leave before the mouth admits it. This small sign is easy to overlook because most people watch the face, not the feet. Someone may smile, nod, laugh, and keep answering. But if their toes keep pointing toward the door, hallway, stairs, or open space, their attention may already be moving away from the conversation. This happens because the feet are linked to instinct. When people feel interested, safe, or emotionally present, their lower body usually stays oriented toward the person in front of them. But when they feel bored, trapped, pressured, uncomfortable, or simply ready to go, the body begins preparing an escape route. The toes turn first because they are the first part of the body that would move if the person decided to walk away. You may notice this during long conversations, awkward questions, tense meetings, forced social gatherings, or moments when someone is being polite but no longer present. Their face may still perform kindness, but their feet quietly expose the truth. The body does not always wait for permission from the mouth. This does not always mean dislike. A person may have somewhere else to be, feel overwhelmed, need space, or want the conversation to end without hurting your feelings. That is why the sign matters most when it repeats or appears with other clues, like checking the time, leaning away, giving shorter answers, or scanning the room. When the toes point toward escape, listen carefully. The person may still be standing there, but part of them has already left emotionally, quietly, and sometimes long before the goodbye comes. Fake smiles vanish quickly. Fake smiles appear and vanish quickly because they are controlled by intention, not emotion. A real smile grows from the inside first. It softens the eyes, lifts the cheeks, loosens the face, and usually lingers for a moment after the feeling passes. A fake smile, however, often looks like a switch. It turns on when needed, performs its job, then disappears the second the person no longer feels watched. This is why fake smiles can feel strange, even when you cannot explain why. The mouth may curve upward, but the rest of the face stays quiet. The eyes may not warm, the cheeks may not rise naturally. The expression may arrive too fast, sit too perfectly, or drop too suddenly. Something inside you senses that the smile is being used as a mask, not released as a feeling. You may see this when someone is trying to appear friendly, hide irritation, avoid conflict, cover discomfort, or make a moment seem normal. They may smile while greeting you, answering a question, receiving criticism, or pretending not to be affected. But once the social pressure passes, the smile fades sharply, and the real emotion returns through the eyes, jaw, or silence. The timing is the secret. Genuine smiles usually have a natural rhythm. Fake ones often have edges. They appear when useful and vanish when the performance is no longer needed. A quick, disappearing smile does not always mean deception, but it reveals effort. It shows someone is managing how they are seen, and sometimes that brief smile is not happiness. It is protection from being read too easily by anyone watching closely in that moment. Comfort shows in loose shoulders and easy movement. Comfort is one of the hardest feelings to fake because it lives in the whole body, not just the face. A person can force a smile, choose polite words, or pretend to be relaxed, but when they truly feel safe, the body begins to move differently. The shoulders drop, the arms loosen, the breathing becomes smoother, and every movement looks less guarded. Loose shoulders are powerful because stress often climbs into that part of the body first. When someone feels watched, judged, threatened, or emotionally uncertain, the shoulders may rise slightly, tighten, or stay fixed. But when they feel accepted, respected, or at ease, the body no longer prepares for defense. The shoulders settle, and the person looks more open without trying. Easy movement is another strong clue. Comfortable people shift naturally, gesture freely, lean without stiffness, and move with rhythm. Their body does not look like it is calculating every action. There is no constant checking, hiding, shrinking, or protecting. Their movements flow because their nervous system is not busy scanning for danger. You may notice this when someone begins to trust you during a conversation. At first, they may sit stiffly, keep their hands close, or speak carefully. But as comfort grows, they may lean back, laugh more naturally, use their hands, or take up more space. The change can be subtle, but it reveals emotional safety. Comfort is not loud. It does not always announce itself through big smiles or warm words. Sometimes it appears quietly in a relaxed posture, a softer voice, and movements that say, without speaking, I do not feel the need to protect myself here. Neck touching signals stress. Neck touching is one of those small body language signs that can reveal discomfort before a person says a single honest word. The neck is a vulnerable area, and when someone touches it during a tense moment, the gesture often acts like self-soothing. It is the body's quiet attempt to calm pressure, fear, uncertainty, or emotional exposure. You may see someone rub the side of the neck, cover the throat, adjust a collar, scratch lightly, or place a hand near the base of the neck while speaking. These movements can appear when a question feels too personal, when a conversation becomes uncomfortable, or when the person is trying to stay composed while something inside them is tightening. This does not always mean deception. A person may touch their neck because they feel shy, overwhelmed, embarrassed, tired, or physically uncomfortable. But when the gesture appears suddenly after a sensitive question, it becomes more meaningful. The body is telling you the topic has created pressure. The throat and neck are linked to vulnerability because they sit close to breathing, speech, and protection. When stress rises, people often touch this area without realizing it, as if they are trying to steady themselves before their words reveal too much. Their voice may remain calm, but the hand moves to the neck like a signal flare. Watch for timing. If neck touching appears during ordinary moments, it may mean little. But if it appears right after a name, accusation, memory, or uncomfortable silence, pay attention. The person may still be talking, but their body may already be asking for safety, space, relief, or a way out from the pressure. Covering the mouth. Covering the mouth can mean a person is holding back words they do not feel safe enough to release. It may happen as a quick finger over the lips, a hand resting near the mouth, a fist pressed lightly against the face, or even a sudden sip from a cup at the exact moment the conversation becomes uncomfortable. The gesture looks small, but it can reveal a silent battle between what the person wants to say and what they think they should hide. The mouth is where truth leaves the body, so when someone covers it, the nervous system may be trying to block expression. This does not always mean they are lying. Sometimes they are stopping themselves from confessing anger, admitting attraction, revealing fear, correcting someone, or saying something that could change the mood in the room. You may notice it when a sensitive name is mentioned, when someone is asked a direct question, when a painful memory comes up, or when they hear something that surprises them. Their face may stay calm, but the hand moves toward the mouth as if the body is trying to hold the sentence inside. This sign becomes stronger when it appears with silence, tight lips, lowered eyes, nervous laughter, or a sudden change in breathing. The person may not be ready to speak, but their body has already shown that something is being controlled. When someone covers the mouth at the right moment, pay attention. It may be the body's quiet way of saying, "There is more here." but I do not know if it is safe to let it out in one private, tense, revealing moment. Adjusting clothes. Adjusting clothes may show insecurity because the body often tries to fix the outside when the inside feels exposed. A person may pull at their shirt, smooth their dress, adjust their sleeves, straighten their collar, touch their belt, or keep checking how they look when attention suddenly lands on them. It can seem like a simple habit, but in the right moment, it may reveal self-consciousness. This gesture often appears when someone feels judged, watched, attracted, compared, or unsure of how they are being perceived. The clothing becomes something they can control when the situation feels emotionally difficult to control. Instead of saying, "I feel nervous," the body says it through small fixing movements. You may notice this when a person enters a room, meets someone they want to impress, receives a compliment, gets criticized, or feels out of place in a group. Their face may look calm, but their hands keep returning to the same button, sleeve, hem, or neckline. That repetition can show that their confidence is not fully settled. This does not always mean weakness. Sometimes people adjust clothes because something is genuinely uncomfortable. But when the movement happens suddenly after eye contact, attention, praise, silence, or pressure, it becomes more revealing. The deeper message is control. When people feel emotionally exposed, they often search for one small thing to correct. The outfit becomes a shield, a distraction, and a way to regain composure. If someone keeps fixing what is already fine, they may not be fixing the clothes. They may be trying to fix the feeling of being seen too closely by someone whose opinion suddenly feels powerful and hard to escape. Fast blinking. Fast blinking can reveal stress because the eyes often react before the person has time to explain what is happening inside them. In calm moments, blinking usually follows a natural rhythm. But when pressure rises, the blinking may suddenly increase, as if the body is trying to reset itself under emotional heat. This happens because stress affects the nervous system. When someone feels questioned, watched, embarrassed, threatened, attracted, guilty, or overwhelmed, the body may become more alert. The eyes begin working harder. They blink more because the brain is processing too much at once, trying to manage thoughts, emotions, and the need to appear normal. You may notice fast blinking when a person is asked something unexpected, hears a name that affects them, receives criticism, tells a difficult story, or tries to hide a reaction. Their words may sound steady, but their eyes may begin moving faster than their voice. That mismatch is what makes the sign powerful. Fast blinking does not automatically mean someone is lying. It can also show anxiety, tiredness, dry eyes, bright light, or nervous excitement. But when it appears suddenly during a sensitive moment, it becomes more meaningful. The body may be showing that the person feels mentally crowded. Watch the timing. If the blinking increases right after a question, accusation, compliment, or uncomfortable silence, the person may be under pressure. They may still be speaking calmly, but their eyes are revealing the strain. In that rapid blinking, you may be seeing the mind scramble to stay composed while emotion rises beneath the surface, fighting to look calm when the body is already telling the truth in plain sight again now. Slow blinking. Slow blinking can show focus or control because the eyes often slow down when the mind is trying to stay steady. While fast blinking may reveal pressure, slow blinking can suggest that someone is concentrating, measuring their response, or deliberately keeping their emotions contained. It is a quiet sign, but it can make a person appear calm, unreadable, or deeply absorbed. You may notice slow blinking when someone is listening carefully, thinking through a difficult answer, or trying not to react too quickly. Their eyes close for a fraction longer than usual, then open with control. This can create the impression that they are weighing every word, studying the situation, or refusing to let emotion push them into a careless response. But slow blinking can also have a different meaning. Sometimes it is not calmness, it is controlled tension. A person may slow their blinking when they are irritated, suspicious, disappointed, or silently judging what they just heard. Instead of reacting openly, they pull the reaction inward. Their face stays composed, but the slow blink becomes a pause, almost like the mind is saying, "Be careful." This sign becomes more powerful when it appears with a still face, a tight jaw, silence, or direct eye contact. It can make the person feel harder to read because they are not giving away much movement. Slow blinking does not prove confidence or hidden emotion by itself. But in the right moment, it reveals control. It shows a person is not simply reacting. They are managing themselves, choosing what to show, and deciding how much of their real feeling deserves to escape through the eyes in that moment alone. Leaning back. Leaning back may mean discomfort because the body often creates distance before the mouth admits anything is wrong. When someone feels relaxed, interested, and emotionally safe, their body usually stays open or naturally angled toward the conversation. But when something feels too intense, too personal, or too threatening, the body may quietly pull away. This movement can happen in a chair, on a couch, at a table, or even while standing. A person may lean back after a difficult question, an unexpected comment, a challenge, a criticism, or a truth they do not want to face. The movement may be small, but the message can be powerful. Their body is trying to create space from the pressure. Leaning back does not always mean dislike. Sometimes it means the person is thinking, tired, surprised, or simply changing posture. But when the movement happens suddenly, especially after a sensitive topic, it often shows emotional resistance. The body may be saying, "This is too close," even while the voice tries to stay polite. You may notice the person lean back while giving shorter answers, folding their arms, tightening their jaw, or looking away. These extra signals make the movement stronger because they show the person is not only shifting physically, but also protecting themselves emotionally. The secret is timing. If someone leans back right after you mention a name, ask a direct question, or reveal something uncomfortable, watch carefully. Their words may continue smoothly, but their body has already stepped back from the moment, searching for distance, control, and safety. Before the conversation reaches a place they do not want to enter, explain, defend, or emotionally revisit alone again. Leaning in. Leaning in often shows interest because the body naturally moves closer to what the mind wants to understand, feel, or connect with. When someone is relaxed and engaged, they may lean forward without realizing it. Their chest opens, their eyes stay present, their voice becomes more involved, and their body quietly says, "I am here with you." This can happen during a deep conversation, an exciting story, a moment of attraction, or a discussion that truly matters to them. The person may not confess interest with words, but the forward movement reveals attention. They are reducing distance because the moment feels important enough to move closer to. But leaning in is not always a warm signal. The body can lean forward because of pressure too. If the shoulders are tight, the jaw is hard, the eyes are sharp, or the hands are tense, leaning in may show control, challenge, suspicion, or emotional intensity. In that case, the person is not moving closer because they feel safe. They may be moving closer because they want answers, power, or dominance. That is why tension changes the meaning. A soft lean feels inviting. A stiff lean feels loaded. One says, "I want to hear more." The other says, "Be careful what you say next." Watch the whole body, not just the direction. If someone leans in with relaxed breathing, easy gestures, and a calm face, interest is likely. If they lean in with rigid stillness, narrowed eyes, or tight movements, the closeness may not be connection. It may be pressure wearing the mask of attention, and the body may be preparing to confront, not connect, with you directly. Crossed arms. Crossed arms are often misunderstood because people quickly assume they mean defense, rejection, or anger. But in many situations, crossed arms can simply mean comfort. The body sometimes folds into itself, not because it is closing you out, but because it is trying to feel settled, warm, balanced, or secure. Some people cross their arms when they are listening deeply. Others do it when they are tired, cold, shy, or trying to focus. It can also be a familiar resting position, especially for people who do not know what to do with their hands. That is why reading crossed arms without context can make you misjudge someone completely. The real secret is not the arms alone, it is the tension around them. If the arms are crossed loosely, the shoulders are relaxed, the face is soft, and the person is still engaged, they may feel perfectly comfortable. They may be listening, thinking, or simply settling into the moment. But if the arms are crossed tightly, the hands grip the body, the jaw hardens, the chest pulls back, or the person gives short answers, the meaning changes. Now, the arms may become a shield. The person may be protecting themselves from pressure, judgment, conflict, or emotional exposure. You may notice this during difficult conversations, group settings, or moments when someone feels watched. Crossed arms can either say, "I am comfortable here," or "I need protection here." The difference is hidden in the rest of the body. The arms may look closed, but the full posture tells you whether they are resting, resisting, or quietly holding themselves together before real feeling becomes too visible to everyone around them. Tight crossed arms. Tight crossed arms show tension because the body is no longer just resting, it is protecting. When someone folds their arms firmly across the chest, grips their own biceps, locks the elbows, or presses the hands against the body, the gesture can become a barrier. It is as if the person is holding themselves together while trying not to reveal how uncomfortable, angry, nervous, or guarded they feel. This sign is stronger than ordinary crossed arms because pressure changes the posture. Loose crossed arms may mean comfort, but tight crossed arms often carry weight. The shoulders may rise, the chest may close, the jaw may harden, and the person may become less expressive. Their body is quietly saying, "I do not feel open right now." You may notice this when someone is being criticized, questioned, challenged, ignored, embarrassed, or forced into a conversation they do not want to have. They may still stand there calmly, but the arms reveal resistance. The tighter the grip, the more the body may be trying to control emotion. Tight crossed arms can also show self-comfort. Some people hold themselves this way when they feel exposed, overwhelmed, or unsafe. It gives the nervous system a sense of pressure and containment, almost like a private shield in public. The key is to watch what changes. If someone was relaxed and suddenly crosses their arms tightly after a certain word, name, question, or silence, that moment mattered. Their mouth may continue politely, but the body has already closed the gate, keeping emotion inside before anyone gets close enough to read it clearly, without permission or deeper emotional access in that moment again. The body pulls away. When the face agrees but the body pulls away, trust the body because the face is easier to control than instinct. A person can smile, nod, laugh softly, and say, "Yes, I understand," while their shoulders turn away, their feet shift back, their chest closes, or their body creates distance. That mismatch is where the truth often hides. The face is social. It knows how to perform politeness, hide discomfort, and keep peace. People learn early how to look fine even when they are not fine. But the body is more honest because it reacts before the person edits the reaction. It moves towards safety and away from pressure, even when the mouth is trying to sound agreeable. You may see this when someone accepts an invitation but steps back, agrees to a request but turns their torso away, smiles during a tense conversation but leans away, or says they are comfortable while their hands tighten. Their words may be cooperative, but their body is quietly resisting. This does not always mean they are lying. Sometimes they are trying to be kind, avoid conflict, or protect another person's feelings. But it does mean there is a difference between what they are showing and what they are feeling. The agreement may be social. The retreat may be emotional. The strongest clue is contradiction. When the face says yes and the body says distance, the body usually deserves more attention. It may be revealing discomfort, hesitation, fear, pressure, or hidden disagreement. The person may not be ready to speak the truth, but their posture may already be moving away from the answer their mouth just gave. Glancing at your mouth. Glancing at your mouth can show focus or attraction because the eyes often drift toward the part of the face that carries meaning, emotion, and tension. The mouth speaks, smiles, hesitates, tightens, and reveals tiny changes the person may be trying to understand. When someone keeps looking there, they may not only be hearing your words, they may be studying the feeling behind them. In normal conversation, people move their gaze between the eyes, face, and surroundings. But when the mouth becomes a repeated point of attention, it can suggest deeper interest. They may be focused on what you are saying, trying to read your tone, or watching for signs of honesty, softness, nervousness, or emotional reaction. The mouth gives clues the eyes sometimes hide. It can also suggest attraction, especially when the glance happens during silence, laughter, closeness, or a moment where the energy feels charged. The person may look at your mouth briefly, look away, then return again without realizing it. That small movement can reveal a thought they are trying to keep private. But this sign needs context. Someone may glance at your mouth because they are trying to hear you better, read your lips, understand your pronunciation, or follow the conversation in a noisy place. It does not always mean desire. The clue is repetition and timing. If their eyes keep returning to your mouth when the conversation becomes personal, playful, quiet, or emotionally warm, something may be pulling their attention there. Their words may stay controlled, but their gaze may already be revealing curiosity, interest, or attraction. They are not ready to say aloud yet in the open for you to notice. Looking sideways before answering. Looking sideways before answering can mean the person is choosing their words carefully instead of speaking freely. The eyes may shift away for a second, not because they are automatically lying, but because the mind is searching for a safe path through the question. In that small sideways glance, you may be watching someone measure truth, consequence, and image all at once. This often happens when the question feels sensitive. A person may look sideways before answering about where they were, how they feel, what they know, or whether something bothered them. The glance gives the brain a moment to organize the answer, soften it, hide part of it, or make it sound less dangerous. Sometimes it is simply a thinking habit. People look away when recalling details, forming sentences, or trying to explain something clearly. But when the sideways glance appears suddenly after pressure, the meaning becomes sharper. It can show that the answer is not coming from immediate honesty. It is being filtered. Watch what follows the glance. If the person returns with a careful voice, slower speech, extra details, or a polished explanation, they may be managing how the answer lands. Their body moved away for a moment because the truth felt too exposed to release without control. The most revealing part is timing. If their eyes shift sideways right before a serious reply, the mind may be editing the response before the mouth delivers it. The answer may still be true, but it may also be protected, shaped, and carefully dressed before you ever hear it, especially when silence suddenly feels heavier than the words they finally choose to share. Looking down. Looking down may show discomfort or shame because the eyes often drop when a person feels exposed. When someone cannot comfortably hold eye contact, their gaze may fall to the floor, their lap, their hands, or anywhere that lets them escape the emotional weight of being seen. It is a small movement, but it can reveal that something inside them feels vulnerable. This does not always mean guilt. People look down when they are shy, overwhelmed, respectful, embarrassed, sad, or trying to control emotion. But when the movement happens after a direct question, a painful comment, a mistake, or a reminder of something they would rather hide, it becomes more powerful. The body may be lowering the eyes because the person does not want their face to reveal too much. Looking down can also be a way of shrinking from pressure. Eye contact can feel intense when someone feels judged. By looking down, the person creates a private space inside the conversation, almost as if they are trying to disappear for a second without physically leaving. You may notice this when someone is corrected, accused, complimented unexpectedly, confronted with truth, or reminded of a moment that still carries emotional weight. Their mouth may stay quiet, their face may tighten, and their eyes may drop before any words come out. The clue is timing. If someone looks down right after a sensitive topic appears, pay attention. They may be feeling shame, regret, fear, sadness, or emotional discomfort. Their silence may not be empty. It may be full of everything they are trying not to show, while their eyes quietly retreat from being read too deeply right now. Looking up. Looking up often means thinking, because the eyes naturally move away from the conversation when the brain is searching for information. Instead of responding immediately, a person may lift their gaze toward the ceiling or into the distance for a brief moment. That small movement creates mental space, allowing thoughts, memories, or ideas to come together before words are spoken. This does not mean the person is avoiding the question. In many cases, it means they are trying to answer it accurately. The brain becomes busy recalling details, organizing information, or deciding how to explain something clearly. While this is happening, eye contact may briefly disappear because attention has shifted inward rather than outward. You may notice someone looking up when they are asked about an old memory, solving a difficult problem, making an important decision, or searching for the right words to express a complicated feeling. Their eyes move first because the mind has temporarily stepped away from the room to explore what it already knows. The movement can also show careful reflection. Instead of reacting emotionally or speaking impulsively, the person is giving themselves a moment to think. That pause often leads to a more thoughtful response than an immediate answer would. The key is context. Looking up by itself does not reveal deception, intelligence, or honesty. It simply shows that mental effort is taking place. When it appears with a relaxed face and natural pauses, it usually reflects genuine thinking rather than emotional avoidance. Watch what happens after the eyes return. If the answer feels measured, detailed, or sincere, the upward glance was likely the mind quietly searching for the best way to turn thoughts into words before speaking. A turned torso. A turned torso often shows polite disinterest because the body is quietly creating distance even while the conversation continues. A person may keep their face toward you, smile, nod, and respond with friendly words, yet their chest and shoulders gradually rotate away. It is a subtle signal that their attention is beginning to move elsewhere, even if they are trying to remain respectful. The torso is important because it usually points toward what the mind values most. When someone feels interested, engaged, or emotionally connected, their chest naturally faces the person they want to interact with. But when interest fades or discomfort grows, the body may begin turning away long before the conversation actually ends. This does not always mean rejection. Someone may turn their torso because they need to leave, they are distracted, they feel tired, or something else has captured their attention. However, when the movement happens during an important conversation or immediately after a sensitive topic appears, it often suggests emotional withdrawal rather than physical comfort. You may notice this during networking events, family gatherings, meetings, or difficult discussions. The person continues speaking politely, but their body is already preparing to disengage. Their feet may follow the same direction, their answers may become shorter, and their eyes may begin scanning the room more often. The real clue is the difference between the face and the body. The face may still be performing kindness because social rules encourage politeness. The torso, however, is usually less disciplined. It quietly points toward where the person would rather be. When the chest turns away while the conversation continues, listen carefully. Their words may still be present, but their attention may already be leaving before they ever say goodbye. People mirror those they like. People naturally mirror those they like because the human brain is wired to build connection through imitation. Without realizing it, they begin copying small parts of another person's behavior. It may be the way they sit, the speed at which they speak, the way they laugh, or even the words and expressions they use. These tiny similarities create a silent feeling of familiarity that often happens long before either person notices it. Mirroring is rarely planned. It usually appears when someone feels comfortable, interested, or emotionally connected. The more they enjoy your company, the more likely their body will begin matching yours. If you lean forward, they may lean forward a few moments later. If you smile, they smile. If you speak more softly, they may lower their voice without thinking. Their body is quietly saying, "We are on the same wavelength." This is why mirroring is considered one of the strongest signs of rapport. It shows that the other person's attention is fully engaged. Instead of only hearing your words, they are unconsciously following your rhythm, your energy, and your emotional state. The connection becomes visible through movement rather than conversation. However, mirroring should never be judged from a single action. Some people naturally copy others, while some intentionally use mirroring to build trust in sales, negotiation, or persuasion. The difference is consistency and timing. Genuine mirroring feels effortless and develops naturally as the conversation becomes warmer. Watch for repeated similarities instead of one copied gesture. When someone begins matching your posture, expressions, speech, and energy without appearing forced, there is often more than simple politeness happening. Their body may already feel connected to you before they are ready to admit it with words. Broken mirroring. Broken mirroring can show distance because people naturally stop matching each other when the emotional connection begins to fade. When two people feel comfortable together, their bodies often move in quiet harmony. They lean at similar times, smile with the same rhythm, and unconsciously reflect each other's posture, gestures, or tone. But when that invisible connection weakens, the mirroring often disappears first. You may notice this during a conversation that suddenly becomes uncomfortable. One person changes position, but the other no longer follows. One smiles, while the other remains still. One leans forward with interest, but the other leans back or turns away. The body is no longer moving in sync because the emotional rhythm between them has changed. This does not always mean dislike. Broken mirroring can happen because someone feels distracted, tired, upset, anxious, or mentally focused on something else. But when it appears immediately after a disagreement, criticism, awkward silence, or sensitive topic, it may reveal growing emotional distance. The strongest clue is contrast. If two people were naturally mirroring each other moments earlier and that pattern suddenly stops, something in the interaction has shifted. The body often breaks connection before the words do. One person may still be trying to build rapport, while the other has already started pulling away emotionally. Watch the timing rather than a single gesture. If the mirroring disappears after a particular comment or question, that moment likely changed the emotional atmosphere. The conversation may continue politely, but the silent sense of togetherness has weakened. When natural mirroring fades, pay attention. The body may be revealing that trust, comfort, or interest has quietly slipped away, even though neither person has openly acknowledged the change with words. A relaxed jaw. A relaxed jaw shows comfort because the body lets go of unnecessary tension when it feels safe. Most people never think about their jaw, yet it is one of the first places where stress quietly settles. When someone feels anxious, threatened, or emotionally pressured, the muscles around the mouth and jaw often tighten without them even noticing. But when they feel calm, accepted, and at ease, those muscles naturally soften. You may notice this during an easy conversation with close friends or people someone trusts. Their mouth rests naturally, their teeth are not pressed together, and their face looks effortless rather than controlled. They are not carefully managing every expression because they do not feel the need to protect themselves. A relaxed jaw often appears alongside other signs of comfort. The shoulders drop, breathing becomes steady, gestures flow more naturally, and eye contact feels easy instead of forced. These signals work together to show that the nervous system is no longer preparing for conflict or danger. This does not mean a relaxed jaw always signals happiness. A person can feel peaceful, thoughtful, or simply comfortable without smiling. The important clue is the absence of tension. The face no longer looks like it is holding something back. Watch for changes instead of fixed habits. If someone's jaw softens as the conversation continues, they may be growing more comfortable around you. If it suddenly tightens after a certain question or comment, the emotional atmosphere may have changed. The jaw is difficult to control for long periods without becoming tired. That is why it often reveals genuine emotional comfort before the person says they feel relaxed. Sometimes the face quietly admits safety long before the mouth ever speaks the words aloud. A clenched jaw. A clenched jaw shows restraint because it often reveals a person is holding something back instead of letting it out. The teeth press together, the muscles along the jaw become more defined, and the face suddenly looks firmer. It is a quiet signal that emotion is being controlled rather than expressed. While the mouth stays silent, the jaw may be carrying the weight of everything the person refuses to say. This does not always mean anger. A clenched jaw can also appear during frustration, disappointment, fear, anxiety, emotional pain, or intense concentration. The body tightens because the nervous system is preparing for action, while the person is choosing not to react. They may want to argue, cry, defend themselves, or walk away, but instead, they remain still. You may notice this after a criticism, an unfair comment, a difficult question, or an unexpected insult. The person may continue speaking calmly, but the jaw becomes noticeably tighter. Their voice may stay steady, yet their body quietly reveals that something inside them has changed. The strength of this signal comes from timing. If the jaw suddenly tightens after a certain word, name, or topic, that moment likely carried emotional weight. The person may be controlling an impulse, protecting themselves, or stopping an honest reaction from escaping. Watch the rest of the body as well. A clenched jaw paired with tight shoulders, crossed arms, narrowed eyes, or controlled breathing often points to emotional restraint rather than physical discomfort. The jaw can hide words that never get spoken. When it suddenly hardens, the body may be revealing a battle between what the person truly feels and what they believe they must keep inside. Tight lips. Tight lips often mean disagreement because the mouth is physically holding something back. When the lips press firmly together, becoming thinner or almost disappearing, it can signal that the person is resisting the urge to speak. Instead of expressing what they truly think, the body quietly seals the words inside. This does not always mean the person disagrees with you. Tight lips can also appear when someone feels disappointed, frustrated, offended, or emotionally uncomfortable. But when they suddenly press their lips together after hearing a statement, receiving criticism, or being asked for their opinion, it often suggests they are not fully accepting what has just happened. You may notice this during arguments, meetings, family discussions, or conversations where someone feels they cannot safely express their true thoughts. They may continue nodding or speaking politely, but their lips become firm, revealing an emotion their words are hiding. The body is trying to maintain control, while the mind debates whether speaking is worth the consequences. The timing makes this signal powerful. If relaxed lips suddenly become tight after a specific comment or question, something in that moment created resistance. The person may be choosing silence over conflict, even though they strongly disagree inside. Watch for other signs that appear with it. Tight lips combined with crossed arms, a clenched jaw, looking away, or shorter answers often strengthen the message. These signals together suggest the person is emotionally pulling back. Pressed lips rarely tell the whole story on their own. But when they appear at the right moment, they often reveal that the conversation has reached a point where thoughts remain trapped behind restraint, even though the body is quietly asking to speak. Pressed lips. Pressed lips often show held back words because the mouth instinctively closes when a person is stopping themselves from speaking. The lips press together firmly, sometimes becoming almost invisible, as if the body is creating a barrier between thought and speech. It is one of the clearest signs that someone has something to say but has decided, at least for the moment, to keep it inside. This gesture does not always mean deception. It can appear when someone wants to disagree, admit something, defend themselves, reveal a secret, or express an emotion they believe is better left unsaid. The body is not hiding the feeling. It is containing it. You may notice pressed lips after a difficult question, a disrespectful comment, an awkward joke, or a statement the person strongly disagrees with. Instead of interrupting or arguing, they press their lips together and remain silent. That silence is often filled with words they have chosen not to release. The timing is what makes this signal valuable. If someone's lips suddenly press together after a particular topic or sentence, pay attention to what happened just before it. The body is reacting to something emotionally significant, even if the person quickly regains composure. Pressed lips often appear with other signs of restraint, such as a clenched jaw, crossed arms, slower breathing, or looking away. Together, these signals suggest the person is working hard to control their response rather than expressing it honestly. A single gesture never tells the whole story, but pressed lips are rarely meaningless. They often reveal that the conversation has touched a thought, feeling, or opinion the person is not yet ready to share, no matter how calm or agreeable they may appear on the surface. Lip licking. Lip licking can show nerves or pressure because stress often changes the body's natural reactions before the mind catches up. When people become anxious, embarrassed, or emotionally overwhelmed, the nervous system can reduce saliva production, making the lips feel dry. Without thinking, they quickly lick their lips as a way to relieve that discomfort. What looks like a harmless habit may actually be the body's response to rising emotional tension. This gesture often appears when someone is asked an unexpected question, faces criticism, tells an uncomfortable story, or waits for an important response. Their voice may remain calm, but the quick movement of the tongue across the lips can quietly reveal that they are feeling more pressure than they want others to see. This does not always mean fear or deception. Lip licking can also happen because of dry weather, dehydration, or simple habit. But when it appears suddenly during a sensitive moment, it becomes much more meaningful. The timing tells you the body is reacting to the conversation, not just to dry lips. You may also notice lip licking before someone speaks rather than after. This can suggest they are mentally preparing themselves for what they are about to say. They may be choosing their words carefully, gathering courage, or trying to stay composed before revealing something emotionally difficult. The strongest clue is change. If a person rarely licks their lips but suddenly begins doing so after a particular topic, question, or accusation, something has shifted inside them. Their body is responding to pressure before their words fully catch up. Sometimes, the smallest movements reveal the loudest emotions, and a single nervous lick of the lips can quietly expose the tension someone is trying so hard to hide. Face touching. Face touching often means anxiety because the body naturally looks for ways to calm itself when emotions begin to rise. Without realizing it, a person may rub their cheek, touch their nose, scratch their chin, cover part of their face, or rest their fingers against their lips. These small movements often act as self-soothing behaviors, helping the nervous system cope with pressure, uncertainty, or emotional discomfort. This does not always mean someone is lying. In fact, many honest people touch their face when they feel nervous, embarrassed, overwhelmed, or put on the spot. The gesture is usually less about hiding the truth and more about calming the mind while dealing with stress. The body is searching for comfort in the middle of an uncomfortable moment. You may notice face touching after a difficult question, during an awkward silence, while discussing a painful memory, or when someone feels judged. Their words may sound steady, but their hand keeps returning to the same part of the face. That repeated movement can reveal that the conversation is affecting them more deeply than they want to admit. The timing is what gives this gesture meaning. If someone suddenly begins touching their face after a certain topic is mentioned, pay attention to what changed. The emotional pressure may have increased, causing the body to react before the person has fully processed their feelings. Face touching becomes even more revealing when it appears alongside other signs, such as fast blinking, tight lips, a clenched jaw, or restless hands. Together, these signals suggest the person is trying to manage inner tension while maintaining outward control. The face may hide emotion with a smile, but the hand often tells a different story, quietly revealing the anxiety the person is trying so hard to keep beneath the surface. Hidden hands. Hidden hands can show guarded feelings because the hands naturally express what the mind is experiencing. When people feel relaxed and open, they often gesture freely without thinking. But when they become uncomfortable, uncertain, or emotionally cautious, their hands may disappear into pockets, behind their back, under a table, or beneath folded arms. It is as if the body is quietly hiding a part of itself from the conversation. This does not always mean the person is being dishonest. Many people hide their hands when they feel shy, insecure, cold, or unsure of themselves. However, when the hands suddenly disappear during an important conversation, it can suggest the person is becoming more emotionally guarded. You may notice this after a difficult question, an unexpected accusation, a personal topic, or a moment when someone feels judged. Their face may remain calm and their voice may stay polite, but their hands quietly vanish from sight. The body is reducing expression because it no longer feels completely safe. Hands are one of the most expressive parts of the body. They naturally communicate confidence, enthusiasm, honesty, and openness. When they stop moving or become hidden, it often means the person is becoming more careful about what they reveal. They may be protecting themselves emotionally, even if they continue speaking normally. The timing is what matters most. If someone who is gesturing comfortably suddenly hides their hands after a particular comment or question, pay attention. Something in that moment changed how secure they felt. Hidden hands are not proof of deception, but they often reveal hesitation. The person may still be standing in front of you, but emotionally, they have started pulling inward, protecting thoughts or feelings they are not yet ready to place in the open for others to see. Open palms. Open palms suggest openness because they communicate that a person has nothing to hide. Throughout history, showing empty hands signaled peaceful intentions. Even today, the brain unconsciously associates visible palms with honesty, safety, and trust. When someone naturally gestures with open hands, they often appear more approachable and sincere, even before they speak. This does not mean every person with open palms is telling the truth. Skilled manipulators also understand that open-handed gestures make them appear trustworthy. That is why this signal should never be judged alone. It becomes meaningful only when it matches the person's words, tone, and other body language. You may notice open palms during genuine conversations, heartfelt apologies, honest explanations, or moments when someone wants to reassure you. Their hands move freely, their fingers stay relaxed, and their gestures look effortless rather than rehearsed. The body is not trying to protect itself. Instead, it is inviting connection. Open palms also show emotional confidence. People who feel comfortable usually have little reason to hide their hands. They gesture naturally because they are focused on expressing themselves instead of controlling every movement. Their posture feels open, their shoulders remain relaxed, and their communication flows more easily. The timing is important. If someone suddenly opens their palms while explaining something personal or responding to a difficult question, they may be trying to show sincerity or build trust. Whether that trust is genuine depends on whether the rest of their body tells the same story. The strongest clue is consistency. When open palms are supported by relaxed posture, calm breathing, and natural eye contact, they often reflect real openness. The body is quietly communicating, "I have nothing to hide," long before those words are ever spoken aloud. Palms down. Palms down often show control because this hand position naturally creates a sense of authority and dominance. When someone speaks with their palms facing the floor, their gestures can feel firm, decisive, and commanding. Instead of inviting discussion, the movement often signals that they want to lead, direct, or settle the situation on their terms. This gesture is common among leaders, teachers, parents, managers, and people who are used to taking charge. A simple downward motion of the hand can silently communicate, "Calm down," "Listen," or "This is how it will be." The person may never say those words, but their body is already expressing them. This does not always mean arrogance or aggression. Many people naturally use palm-down gestures when giving instructions, explaining something important, or trying to bring order to a confusing situation. The gesture can reflect confidence rather than hostility. However, when it appears during an argument or disagreement, it may reveal a desire to control the conversation rather than share it. You may notice palms turning downward after someone is challenged, interrupted, or questioned. Their voice may become firmer, their movements slower, and their gestures more deliberate. The body is trying to establish stability and regain influence over the moment. The key is to observe the rest of the posture. Palms down combined with relaxed shoulders and a calm voice may simply reflect leadership. But palms down paired with a stiff body, narrowed eyes, or a harsh tone can suggest dominance or emotional control. The hands often reveal a person's intentions before their words do. When the palms face downward, the body may be quietly saying, "I want to guide this conversation," or "I intend to stay in control of what happens next." Finger tapping. Finger tapping often shows impatience because it reveals that the mind is moving faster than the moment. While the person may appear calm on the surface, the repeated tapping of a finger against a table, chair, phone, or leg can quietly expose growing frustration, restlessness, or the desire for something to happen sooner. This movement is usually unconscious. As tension builds, the body looks for an outlet to release nervous energy. Instead of expressing impatience with words, the fingers begin creating a steady rhythm. The tapping becomes a silent signal that waiting is becoming emotionally uncomfortable. You may notice finger tapping during long meetings, slow conversations, delayed decisions, traffic, or while someone is waiting for an answer they care about. Their face may remain polite, but their fingers continue moving. The body is revealing that their patience is wearing thin, even if they are trying not to show it. This does not always mean annoyance. Finger tapping can also appear when someone feels excited, anxious, mentally overloaded, or eager for something important to happen. The key is to look at the situation. If the tapping begins after delays, repeated explanations, or uncomfortable silence, impatience becomes the more likely explanation. Watch for changes in rhythm. As emotional pressure increases, the tapping may become faster, louder, or more frequent. That growing intensity often mirrors the person's rising internal tension. Finger tapping is rarely just a random habit in emotionally charged moments. It is often the body's quiet way of releasing energy that the person is choosing not to express openly. While their words may remain calm, their fingers can reveal that their mind has already moved ahead, waiting for everyone else to catch up. Foot tapping. Foot tapping reveals hidden tension because the legs often express emotions the face successfully conceals. While people usually pay attention to smiles, eye contact, and words, the feet are much harder to control. When stress, anxiety, impatience, or nervous energy begins to build, it often escapes through a constantly moving foot. This movement is usually unconscious. A person may tap their foot against the floor, bounce their leg, or repeatedly shift their heel without realizing they are doing it. The body is releasing built-up tension through movement because remaining completely still has become emotionally difficult. You may notice foot tapping during interviews, difficult conversations, long meetings, awkward silences, or while someone waits for important news. Their voice may sound relaxed and their face may appear calm, but beneath the table, their foot keeps moving. The body is quietly revealing that something inside is unsettled. This does not always mean the person is upset. Foot tapping can also reflect excitement, anticipation, excess energy, or simple habit. However, when the movement suddenly begins after a sensitive question, unexpected comment, or emotionally charged moment, it often points to hidden pressure rather than physical restlessness. The speed of the tapping can also matter. Slow, occasional movements may suggest mild impatience, while rapid, continuous tapping often reflects stronger emotional tension. The more the nervous system becomes activated, the harder it becomes for the lower body to stay still. The feet often tell the truth before the face does. When someone cannot stop tapping their foot during an important moment, their body may be quietly releasing emotions they are trying very hard to keep hidden. Sometimes the conversation appears calm, but the feet reveal the storm underneath. Checking time. Checking the time often means the person is mentally done because their attention has already started leaving the conversation before their body does. A quick glance at a watch, phone, clock, or even toward a nearby screen can quietly reveal that their mind is focused on what comes next rather than what is happening now. They may still be standing in front of you, but emotionally, they are preparing to move on. This does not always mean they are bored. People check the time for many practical reasons, such as keeping an appointment or making sure they are not running late. But when the time check happens repeatedly during the same conversation, especially without an obvious reason, it often signals that their interest or patience is fading. You may notice this during long explanations, repetitive discussions, awkward silences, or conversations that no longer feel meaningful to them. They continue nodding, answering politely, or pretending to listen, but their eyes keep searching for the time. The body is quietly saying, "I am ready for this to end." Watch for other signs that appear with it. Shorter answers, less eye contact, turning the torso away, pointing the feet toward the exit, or gathering personal belongings often strengthen the message. Together, these signals suggest the person has already begun disconnecting emotionally. The timing matters most. If someone suddenly checks the time right after a certain topic begins, it may be that subject, not the conversation itself, that caused the shift. Their mind has started looking beyond the present moment. A single glance means little, but repeated time checking often reveals that the conversation has already ended in their mind, even if they have not yet found a polite way to leave. Body angle. Body angle shows who has their attention because the body naturally turns toward what the mind finds most important. While people can politely look at everyone in a group, their torso, shoulders, and hips often point toward the person they are genuinely interested in. It is a quiet signal that usually happens without conscious thought. When someone feels connected, curious, or attracted, their body naturally opens toward that person. They may not even realize they have turned slightly in their direction. This is because the body prefers to face what feels rewarding, meaningful, or emotionally engaging. Long before words reveal interest, body angle often does. You may notice this in groups of friends, business meetings, family gatherings, or social events. Someone may be talking to several people at once, but their chest keeps facing one individual. Even if their eyes briefly move around the room, their body remains pointed toward the person who has captured their attention. This does not always mean romantic attraction. Body angle can also show respect, curiosity, trust, admiration, or simply a stronger interest in what one person is saying. The key is to notice whether the body consistently returns to the same direction throughout the interaction. Watch for changes during the conversation. If someone gradually turns their body toward you, they may be becoming more engaged. If they slowly angle away, their attention may be fading, or shifting elsewhere. The body is often more honest than the face because it is less carefully controlled. While someone may divide their words equally among everyone present, their posture quietly reveals where their interest naturally settles. Sometimes, the direction of the torso tells you who truly has their attention long before they openly admit it. Looking at someone after joking. People often look at the person they like after making a joke because the brain naturally seeks the reaction that matters most. The moment laughter begins, their eyes instinctively search for the one opinion they value above everyone else's. They want to know if that person smiled, laughed, or approved of what they just said. This happens because laughter is a social experience. When people make a joke, they are not only trying to be funny, they are also testing connection. A quick glance toward someone can reveal whose approval carries the most emotional weight. Before they celebrate everyone's reaction, they quietly check the reaction of the person they care about most. You may notice this in a group conversation. Someone tells a story, everyone laughs, yet their eyes immediately find one specific person. They may only look for a second before looking at everyone else, but that first glance often happens automatically. Their attention reveals where their emotional investment truly lies. This does not always mean romantic attraction. They may admire that person, respect them, trust their opinion, or simply want to impress them. The important clue is consistency. If the same person becomes the first face they check after every joke, compliment, or playful comment, the pattern becomes meaningful. Watch what happens before the laughter fades. If their eyes repeatedly return to one individual, they may be measuring the success of the moment through that person's reaction alone. Everyone else's laughter becomes secondary. The face they search for first often reveals the person whose acceptance matters most. While the joke was shared with everyone, the emotional reward was always meant for one particular person, and the eyes quietly reveal that hidden priority before the mind has time to disguise it. The first glance in a room. The first glance in a room often reveals interest because the eyes naturally search for what matters most before the mind has time to think. The moment someone enters a space, they quickly scan their surroundings. In that brief instant, their attention is usually drawn toward the person, object, or place that already holds emotional importance. This first look is often unconscious. A person may immediately search for a close friend, someone they are attracted to, a respected colleague, or even someone they hope to avoid. Before social manners take over, the eyes quietly reveal what the mind has been expecting or hoping to find. You may notice this at parties, meetings, family gatherings, classrooms, or workplaces. As someone walks in, watch where their eyes go first. They may greet everyone politely afterward, but that first glance often tells a more honest story than the conversations that follow. The brain instinctively checks for the person who carries the greatest emotional value. This does not always mean romantic attraction. The first glance can reveal curiosity, concern, respect, admiration, anxiety, or even unresolved conflict. If someone has been thinking about a particular person before entering the room, their eyes often find them almost immediately. The strongest clue is repetition. If the same person becomes the first destination of their gaze every time they enter the room, the pattern becomes difficult to dismiss. The eyes are following emotional importance, not social obligation. While people can choose where they walk, who they greet, and what they say, that first instinctive glance is often beyond conscious control. It quietly exposes where their attention naturally belongs before politeness has a chance to redirect it somewhere else. Mouth-only smiles. Mouth-only smiles are usually polite because they are often created by social manners rather than genuine emotion. The lips curve upward, but the rest of the face remains almost unchanged. The eyes stay neutral. The cheeks barely lift, and the expression disappears as quickly as it arrived. It looks like a smile, but it does not feel fully alive. People use these smiles every day. They appear when greeting strangers, speaking to coworkers, meeting new people, or responding politely in situations where real happiness is not present. A mouth-only smile helps maintain harmony without revealing what the person truly feels. It is a social tool more than an emotional reaction. This does not mean the smile is fake in a dishonest way. It simply means the person is being courteous rather than emotionally expressive. They may respect you, acknowledge your presence, or want to keep the interaction pleasant without feeling genuine excitement or joy. The smile is offered out of politeness, not deep feeling. You may notice this during brief greetings, formal conversations, awkward encounters, or moments when someone is trying to remain friendly despite being tired, distracted, or emotionally distant. Their mouth smiles, but their eyes remain calm and unchanged. The warmth never reaches the rest of the face. The timing is important. A mouth-only smile often appears on cue and disappears the moment the social obligation has passed. Unlike genuine smiles, it rarely lingers naturally or grows from real emotion. Watch the eyes more than the lips. Real happiness usually softens the eyes and lifts the entire face. A polite smile, however, often begins and ends with the mouth alone. It may communicate kindness, but it does not always reveal emotional connection or genuine delight in the moment. Real happiness reaches the eyes. Real happiness reaches the eyes because genuine emotion involves the entire face, not just the mouth. When someone experiences true joy, the eyes soften, the cheeks lift, and tiny lines may appear around the corners of the eyes. The smile spreads naturally instead of looking carefully placed. It is one of the hardest expressions to fake because it happens automatically when the feeling is real. This is why people often say they can see it in someone's eyes. Even if the smile is not very big, the eyes reveal warmth, comfort, and emotional openness. They look brighter, more relaxed, and more engaged with the person in front of them. The expression feels effortless because it is coming from genuine emotion rather than social obligation. You may notice this when someone sees a loved one after a long time, hears unexpected good news, remembers a joyful memory, or laughs without holding back. Their entire face changes. The smile grows naturally. The eyes become more expressive, and the happiness lingers for a moment even after the laughter fades. This does not mean every genuine smile looks the same. Some people smile quietly, while others laugh openly. What they usually have in common is that their eyes participate in the emotion. The happiness is visible beyond the lips. The timing also matters. Genuine smiles tend to appear naturally, grow smoothly, and fade gradually. They do not switch on and off like a performance. When you want to know whether someone's happiness is real, do not focus only on the mouth. Look at the eyes. They often reveal emotions that cannot easily be rehearsed, controlled, or hidden. Long before words explain how someone truly feels, their eyes have already shared the answer. Fake confidence looks stiff. Fake confidence often looks stiff because it is built on performance instead of comfort. A person who is trying hard to appear confident may stand too straight, hold unnatural eye contact, control every movement, or speak with forced certainty. Instead of looking relaxed, their body appears carefully managed, as though they are afraid one wrong move will expose their insecurity. True confidence does not require constant effort. It flows naturally because the person is comfortable with themselves. Fake confidence, however, demands continuous control. Every gesture is measured, every expression is monitored, and every posture is maintained with tension. The body becomes rigid because the person is focused on looking confident rather than simply feeling it. You may notice this when someone keeps their shoulders unnaturally square, avoids casual movements, forces a strong handshake, or speaks loudly even when the situation does not call for it. Their behavior may seem impressive at first, but over time it can feel rehearsed. The confidence looks worn instead of lived. This does not mean every serious or disciplined person lacks confidence. Some people naturally have a firm posture or reserved personality. The difference is flexibility. Truly confident people adjust naturally to the moment, while fake confidence often stays rigid regardless of the situation. Watch how the body responds under pressure. If confidence quickly disappears after criticism, an unexpected question, or a challenge, it may have been built more on appearance than inner security. Real confidence feels effortless because it comes from self-belief. Fake confidence often feels heavy because it depends on constant performance. When the body looks more focused on maintaining an image than enjoying the moment, stiffness quietly reveals the insecurity hiding beneath the surface. Real confidence looks calm. Real confidence looks calm because it does not need to prove itself. A truly confident person rarely feels the urge to dominate every conversation, impress every stranger, or constantly remind others of their value. Instead, their body moves with ease, their voice stays steady, and their presence feels relaxed rather than forceful. They are comfortable enough to let their actions speak louder than their appearance. This calmness comes from inner security. When people genuinely believe in themselves, they have little reason to perform. They do not panic when challenged, rush to defend every opinion, or seek approval from everyone around them. Their confidence is rooted in self-belief, not in the reactions of others. You may notice this in the way they sit, stand, and speak. Their shoulders remain relaxed, their movements are natural, and their eye contact feels comfortable instead of intense. They listen without interrupting, pause before responding, and do not seem threatened when someone else receives attention. Their body communicates quiet certainty rather than loud authority. This does not mean confident people are always silent or emotionally reserved. They can laugh, admit mistakes, ask questions, and even say, "I don't know," without feeling smaller. Their confidence allows them to be flexible because it is not built on pretending to be perfect. The strongest clue appears under pressure. When unexpected problems arise, truly confident people usually remain composed instead of becoming defensive or dramatic. Their calmness reflects trust in their ability to handle whatever comes next. Real confidence rarely demands attention. It creates a quiet sense of stability that others naturally notice. While insecurity often tries to look powerful, genuine confidence simply feels peaceful, and that calm presence is often far more convincing than any performance could ever be. Taking space. Taking space often shows power or comfort because people naturally expand their posture when they feel safe, confident, or in control. They sit with relaxed shoulders, keep their arms open, spread their feet comfortably, and move without trying to make themselves smaller. Their body is not asking for permission to exist. It simply occupies the space naturally. This behavior is deeply connected to emotional security. When people feel accepted or believe they belong, they stop protecting themselves. They no longer need to shrink, hide, or constantly worry about how much room they are taking up. Instead, their posture becomes open and relaxed because the nervous system does not sense a threat. You may notice this in leaders, experienced professionals, or people who feel completely at ease with those around them. They sit comfortably without appearing tense, gesture freely while speaking, and move with an unhurried rhythm. Their body language quietly communicates that they feel secure in the environment. However, taking space does not always mean genuine confidence. Some people deliberately exaggerate their posture to appear dominant or intimidating. They may spread out excessively, invade personal space, or use large movements to demand attention. In those cases, the behavior can be more about projecting power than feeling comfortable. The difference is found in the rest of the body. Genuine comfort looks relaxed and effortless. Forced dominance often looks rigid, exaggerated, or attention-seeking. One comes from inner confidence, while the other tries to create the appearance of it. Watch how naturally the person occupies space. If their movements are calm, flexible, and unforced, they likely feel secure. When someone comfortably takes up space without trying to impress anyone, their body is quietly revealing a sense of confidence that does not need to be announced. Shrinking the body. Shrinking the body often shows unease because people naturally make themselves smaller when they feel uncomfortable, uncertain, or emotionally threatened. The shoulders roll inward, the head lowers slightly, the arms stay close to the body, and the person takes up less space than usual. Without saying a word, the body is quietly trying to avoid attention or protect itself. This reaction is deeply connected to the nervous system. When someone feels judged, intimidated, embarrassed, or out of place, the body often responds by becoming less visible. It is an unconscious attempt to reduce conflict, avoid criticism, or escape unwanted attention. The person may not even realize they are changing their posture. You may notice this during interviews, public speaking, difficult conversations, or when someone enters a room where they feel they do not belong. They may sit on the edge of a chair, keep their elbows tucked in, cross their legs tightly, or avoid making large gestures. Their body appears closed because their mind does not yet feel safe. This does not always mean low confidence. A person may shrink their posture because they are tired, cold, respectful, or simply overwhelmed by the situation. But when the posture changes suddenly after criticism, rejection, or emotional pressure, it often reflects growing unease. The most revealing clue is contrast. If someone was relaxed and open moments earlier, but suddenly becomes smaller after a certain topic or person appears, something has changed emotionally. The body has shifted into protection before the mouth has explained why. People often hide their feelings with words, but posture is harder to control. When someone begins shrinking into themselves, their body may be quietly asking for safety, reassurance, or distance long before they are ready to admit how uncomfortable they truly feel. Rubbing the hands. Rubbing the hands can show nerves or excitement because it is one of the body's natural ways of releasing emotional energy. When someone repeatedly rubs their palms together or slides one hand over the other, they may be trying to calm themselves or prepare for something they strongly anticipate. The movement often appears before important moments, revealing feelings that words have not yet expressed. This gesture does not always carry the same meaning. Sometimes it reflects nervousness. A person may rub their hands before giving a presentation, answering a difficult question, meeting someone important, or facing an uncertain outcome. The body is trying to reduce tension by creating repetitive movement, helping the nervous system feel more in control. At other times, rubbing the hands signals excitement. Someone waiting for good news, a rewarding opportunity, or an enjoyable experience may do the same gesture. Their body is filled with anticipation, and the hands become an outlet for that emotional energy. The movement may look almost identical, but the emotion behind it is completely different. The key is context. Watch what is happening around the person. If they are smiling naturally, speaking enthusiastically, and leaning forward, the hand rubbing may reflect eager anticipation. If they appear tense, avoid eye contact, or breathe more quickly, the gesture is more likely connected to anxiety or pressure. Pay attention to when the movement begins. If the hands suddenly start rubbing after a certain question, announcement, or unexpected event, that moment probably triggered a strong emotional response. The hands often reveal what the voice cannot. Whether the feeling is nervousness or excitement, rubbing the hands usually signals that something important is happening inside the person, and their body is preparing for whatever comes next before their words ever catch up. Scratching the head. Scratching the head often shows confusion because it commonly appears when the brain is struggling to understand, remember, or solve something. A person may reach up without thinking, lightly scratch the side or back of their head, or run their fingers through their hair as they search for an answer. The gesture is usually unconscious, reflecting mental effort rather than physical discomfort. This happens because the mind is working harder than usual. When people cannot immediately make sense of a question, remember a detail, or decide what to say next, the body often responds with small self-touching movements. Scratching the head becomes a physical expression of the brain trying to organize scattered thoughts. You may notice this during difficult conversations, challenging questions, unexpected problems, or moments when someone is asked to explain something they do not fully understand. Their eyes may drift away, they may pause before speaking, and their hand may rise to their head as they think. The movement often appears before the answer, not after it. This does not always mean confusion. Some people scratch their head because of an itch, habit, or simple discomfort. But when the gesture appears suddenly during a mentally demanding moment, it often signals uncertainty rather than irritation. The timing is what gives the gesture meaning. If someone begins scratching their head immediately after hearing a difficult question or surprising piece of information, their mind is likely searching for clarity. The body is revealing the effort taking place behind the scenes. Watch what follows. If the person pauses, changes their answer, or asks for more time to think, the gesture has likely reflected genuine mental processing. Sometimes the hand reaches the head because the brain is still trying to catch up with the moment before words can follow naturally. A tilted head. A tilted head often shows curiosity because it signals that a person is giving you more than just their attention. They are trying to understand you. When someone slightly tilts their head while listening, it often reflects genuine interest in your words, your emotions, or the meaning behind what you are saying. The movement softens the body and creates a more open, approachable posture. This gesture usually happens without conscious thought. Instead of preparing to speak, the person becomes focused on listening. The slight tilt suggests their mind is engaged, asking silent questions and encouraging you to continue. It is one of the body's quiet ways of saying, "I'm interested. Tell me more." You may notice this during meaningful conversations, emotional stories, or when someone hears something unexpected or fascinating. Their eyes stay on you, their shoulders remain relaxed, and their head gently tilts to one side. The movement often makes them appear warmer and more empathetic because their body is showing openness rather than judgment. This does not always mean attraction. A tilted head can also show compassion, careful listening, surprise, or a sincere desire to understand another person's perspective. The meaning depends on the situation and the other body language surrounding it. Watch for consistency. If someone repeatedly tilts their head while you are speaking, especially during personal or important moments, they are likely paying close attention. They are not simply waiting for their turn to talk, they are genuinely processing what you are saying. The head rarely tilts without reason. When it happens naturally, it often reveals that the person's interest is real. Before they ask another question or offer a response, their posture has already shown that your words matter enough to deserve their full attention. A stiff neck. A stiff neck often shows resistance because the body becomes rigid when the mind refuses to relax. Instead of moving naturally, the head stays fixed, the neck muscles tighten, and the person's posture looks controlled rather than comfortable. It is as though the body is preparing to protect itself from something it does not fully accept. This reaction can happen when someone hears an opinion they strongly disagree with, receives criticism, faces an uncomfortable truth, or enters a situation that makes them feel threatened. The body instinctively tightens because the nervous system senses emotional pressure. Even if the person's words remain calm, the neck may quietly reveal that they are resisting what is happening. A stiff neck does not always mean anger. It can also appear during fear, pride, anxiety, stubbornness, or emotional discomfort. Some people become physically rigid when they are trying to hide how deeply something has affected them. Rather than expressing emotion openly, they hold themselves still, hoping their body will not betray what they feel inside. Watch for when the stiffness appears. If someone was relaxed a moment earlier but suddenly stops moving their head after a particular question or comment, that change often matters more than the posture itself. The timing suggests the conversation has touched something emotionally significant. You may also notice a stiff neck alongside a clenched jaw, crossed arms, shallow breathing, or reduced facial expression. Together, these signals often point to emotional resistance rather than physical discomfort. The neck connects the head to the rest of the body, and when it suddenly becomes rigid, it can reveal that the mind has become equally inflexible. Before the person openly disagrees, their posture may already be saying, "I am not comfortable with this." Raised eyebrows. Raised eyebrows often show interest or surprise because they are one of the fastest facial reactions the human body produces. Before a person has time to think about their expression, the eyebrows may lift automatically in response to something unexpected, fascinating, or emotionally important. It is a brief movement, but it can reveal that the mind has been genuinely captured. This reaction happens because raising the eyebrows widens the eyes, allowing the brain to take in more information. When something surprises us or immediately grabs our attention, the face naturally opens. It is an instinctive response that often appears before words, making it one of the more honest facial signals. You may notice raised eyebrows when someone hears unexpected news, sees a person they were hoping to meet, listens to an interesting story, or discovers something they did not expect. The movement may last only a fraction of a second before the face returns to normal, but that first reaction can reveal authentic emotion. This does not always mean positive interest. Raised eyebrows can also appear during shock, confusion, curiosity, admiration, or even concern. The meaning depends on what triggered the reaction and what follows immediately afterward. Watch the timing. If the eyebrows rise the instant a certain name is mentioned, a particular person enters the room, or an important question is asked, that moment likely carried emotional significance. The body reacted before the person had time to control their expression. The brief eyebrow raise is often more revealing than the smile that follows. While people can easily adjust their words and facial expressions, that first instinctive lift of the eyebrows frequently exposes genuine interest or surprise before social awareness has a chance to hide it. One raised eyebrow. One raised eyebrow often shows doubt because it reflects the mind questioning what it has just seen or heard. Unlike both eyebrows rising in surprise, a single raised eyebrow usually signals skepticism, uncertainty, or silent disbelief. It is the face's subtle way of saying, "Are you sure about that?" without speaking a single word. This expression often appears when someone hears a statement that does not seem believable, notices something inconsistent, or feels that a situation does not quite make sense. Instead of reacting with open disagreement, the face expresses quiet suspicion. The person may continue listening politely, but one eyebrow reveals that they are not completely convinced. You may notice this during conversations where someone makes an exaggerated claim, tells an unlikely story, or gives an explanation that feels incomplete. The raised eyebrow may last only a second before disappearing, but it often appears before the person chooses how to respond. Their mind is evaluating the information while their face briefly exposes that process. This does not always mean the person thinks you are lying. A raised eyebrow can also show playful curiosity, confusion, or surprise mixed with amusement. The meaning depends on the person's tone, the situation, and the rest of their body language. Watch what follows the expression. If the raised eyebrow is followed by more questions, silence, crossed arms, or a slight smile, the person may still be deciding whether to accept what they have heard. Their judgment has not yet been made. One raised eyebrow is easy to overlook because it happens so quickly, yet it often reveals the exact moment when confidence turns into doubt. Before the person voices their opinion, their face quietly admits that something about the situation does not fully add up. Slow nodding. Slow nodding often encourages you because it quietly tells you to keep talking. Unlike fast nodding, which can signal impatience, a slow and steady nod usually reflects genuine attention. The person is not rushing the conversation. Instead, they are showing that they are listening carefully and want to hear more of what you have to say. This gesture creates a feeling of safety. When someone nods slowly while maintaining relaxed eye contact and an open posture, it sends the message that your words are being received without judgment. As a result, people naturally become more comfortable sharing deeper thoughts, emotions, and personal experiences. You may notice slow nodding during meaningful conversations, interviews, counseling sessions, or when someone is listening to an emotional story. Therapists, skilled negotiators, and good listeners often use this gesture because it encourages others to continue speaking without interruption. It makes the speaker feel understood instead of pressured. This does not always mean agreement. A person can nod slowly because they understand what you are saying, even if they do not completely share your opinion. The gesture often reflects attention and respect rather than approval. Watch the rest of the body. Slow nodding paired with relaxed shoulders, a slight head tilt, and steady eye contact usually signals genuine engagement. The person is focused on understanding your perspective instead of preparing their next response. The timing is important. When someone begins slow nodding, as you reach a personal or emotional part of your story, they are often inviting you to continue. Without saying a word, their body is reassuring you that they are present, interested, and willing to listen until you have finished expressing what truly matters to you. Fast nodding. Fast nodding often means the person wants you to finish because it can signal impatience rather than agreement. While slow nodding usually encourages you to continue, rapid nodding often communicates, "I understand," or "let's move on." The head keeps moving, but the person's attention may already be shifting toward the end of the conversation. This reaction usually appears when someone feels they have heard enough. They may still be polite, but their body is trying to speed up the interaction without saying it directly. Instead of interrupting you, they nod repeatedly, hoping you will naturally wrap up your point. You may notice fast nodding during long explanations, repeated stories, meetings, or conversations where the listener is in a hurry. Their smile may remain friendly, but the quick rhythm of the nodding suggests they are waiting for a chance to speak or leave. The body is quietly asking for the conversation to move forward. This does not always mean boredom. Fast nodding can also appear when someone feels anxious, excited, or eager to respond. The meaning depends on the rest of their body language. If they are also checking the time, turning toward the exit, giving shorter replies, or gathering their belongings, impatience becomes much more likely. The key is consistency. A few quick nods mean very little, but continuous rapid nodding often reflects growing mental fatigue or urgency. The person is acknowledging your words while silently encouraging a conclusion. Watch what happens next. If they begin speaking the moment you pause or quickly change the subject, the fast nodding was probably not agreement. It was their body's polite way of saying, "I've followed your point, and I'm ready for us to move on." Nodding. While disagreeing. Nodding while disagreeing often shows politeness because many people use the gesture to keep a conversation peaceful rather than to express agreement. A slight nod can simply mean, "I hear you," instead of, "I agree with you." The body is acknowledging the speaker while the mind quietly holds a different opinion. This happens because people often want to avoid conflict, especially in professional settings, family gatherings, or conversations with someone they respect. Rather than interrupting or openly challenging the other person, they nod to show they are listening. It helps maintain harmony even when they are unconvinced by what they are hearing. You may notice this during meetings, negotiations, or sensitive discussions. Someone may continue nodding while their lips tighten, their arms cross, or their body slowly turns away. Their head appears agreeable, but the rest of their body tells a different story. That mismatch is often more revealing than the nod itself. This does not mean the person is being dishonest. In many cases, they are simply choosing respect over argument. They may want more information, need time to think, or believe that disagreeing in that moment would only create unnecessary tension. The key is to watch for consistency. If the nodding is paired with hesitant speech, careful wording, or other signs of emotional resistance, the person may be acknowledging your right to speak without accepting your point of view. A nod is not always a vote of agreement. Sometimes it is nothing more than a social signal that says, "I understand what you are saying." The body may appear cooperative, but the person's real opinion is often revealed by the rest of their posture, expressions, and the words they choose once it is finally their turn to speak. Saying yes while shaking the head, often shows doubt because the words and the body are sending different messages. The mouth may agree, but the head quietly disagrees. This mismatch can reveal hesitation, uncertainty, or an emotional conflict that the person has not expressed openly. While the voice says one thing, the body may be revealing what the mind truly feels. This does not automatically mean the person is lying. Many people say yes because they want to avoid conflict, please others, or end an uncomfortable conversation. At the same time, their head moves side to side almost without conscious control. The nervous system reacts honestly, even while the words remain socially acceptable. You may notice this when someone accepts a request they do not really want to accept, agrees with an opinion they privately question, or promises something they are unsure they can deliver. Their answer sounds positive, but their body quietly signals hesitation. The conflict between speech and movement becomes the real clue. The timing makes this gesture important. If the head begins shaking at the exact moment the word yes is spoken, pay attention. The person's thoughts and emotions may not fully support what they have just said. Their agreement may be reluctant rather than genuine. Watch for supporting signs. If the head shake appears alongside tight lips, a forced smile, crossed arms, or a delayed response, the doubt becomes even more likely. The body is struggling to stay aligned with the words. When speech and body language contradict each other, the body often deserves closer attention. A quiet headshake during a verbal agreement can reveal uncertainty, inner resistance, or emotional hesitation that the person is not yet ready to admit aloud. Saying no while leaning in. Saying no while leaning in can sometimes show hidden interest because the body and the words are moving in opposite directions. The voice creates distance, but the body reduces it. While the person verbally rejects an idea, invitation, or opinion, their posture suggests they are still emotionally engaged. This contradiction can reveal curiosity that has not completely disappeared. Leaning in is usually a sign of attention. People naturally move closer to conversations they find meaningful, exciting, or emotionally important. So when someone says no while leaning forward, it may suggest that their rejection is not as simple as it sounds. They may still want more information, feel conflicted, or remain interested despite their verbal response. This does not always mean romantic attraction or hidden agreement. Someone may lean in because they want to hear you more clearly, challenge your point, or fully understand what you are saying before making a decision. The gesture only becomes meaningful when it appears alongside other signs of engagement, such as steady eye contact, thoughtful questions, or continued conversation. The timing is what matters most. If the person says no, but immediately leans closer instead of pulling away, it may indicate that their emotions are more complicated than their words suggest. The body is staying connected even though the voice is creating separation. Watch for consistency. If they continue leaning in, asking questions, and remaining emotionally present after refusing something, their interest has probably not disappeared. They may simply need more reassurance, more information, or more time before changing their position. When words push away, but the body moves closer, avoid jumping to conclusions. Instead, recognize that mixed signals often reflect mixed emotions. The body may be revealing curiosity or engagement, even while the person is not yet ready to say yes. Touching objects. Touching objects can create distance because people often place something between themselves and another person when they feel emotionally or physically uncomfortable. Without realizing it, they may hold a coffee cup, grip a phone, adjust a bag, or keep a notebook against their chest. The object becomes a quiet barrier, giving them a greater sense of security during the interaction. This behavior is usually unconscious. When the nervous system senses pressure, the body naturally looks for ways to feel protected. Holding an object provides a small feeling of control and can reduce the discomfort of feeling exposed. The object is not always there because it is needed. Sometimes it is there because it feels emotionally reassuring. You may notice this during first meetings, difficult conversations, interviews, or moments when someone feels judged or uncertain. Instead of leaving their hands free, they keep something between themselves and the other person. The object silently creates space without the person having to step backward. This does not always mean anxiety. People hold phones, cups, or bags out of habit and convenience every day. The key is to notice changes. If someone suddenly grabs an object after a sensitive question or moves it between you and them, the gesture becomes more meaningful. Watch what happens next. If the person relaxes and eventually puts the object down, it may suggest they are becoming more comfortable. If they continue holding it tightly throughout the conversation, they may still be feeling emotionally guarded. Objects can become invisible shields. While the person may never admit feeling uneasy, the way they use everyday items often reveals their need for comfort, protection, or personal space. Sometimes, the strongest barrier in a conversation is not a wall between two people, but the object quietly resting in someone's hands. Holding items in front. Holding items in front of the body often acts like a shield because it creates a subtle barrier between a person and the outside world. A backpack, purse, laptop, notebook, shopping bag, pillow, or even a coffee cup can become more than just something to carry. In the right moment, it becomes a form of protection. The object quietly says, "I feel safer with something between us." This behavior usually happens without conscious thought. When people feel nervous, vulnerable, or uncertain, they naturally place objects in front of their chest or stomach. These are areas the body instinctively protects during moments of emotional or physical discomfort. The object creates distance without requiring the person to step away. You may notice this during interviews, first dates, public speaking, difficult conversations, or when someone enters a room full of strangers. They may hug a bag close to their body, hold a folder across their chest, or keep a drink directly in front of them. Their words may sound confident, but the object quietly reveals a need for reassurance. This does not always mean fear. People often carry items this way because it is convenient or simply feels natural. The important clue is when the behavior appears suddenly after emotional pressure or disappears as the person becomes more relaxed. That change often reflects a shift in comfort rather than habit. Watch what happens over time. If the object gradually moves to the person's side, they may be feeling safer. If they continue using it as a barrier, they may still be emotionally guarded. The strongest shields are often the ones no one notices. Before someone admits they feel exposed, their body may already be using an ordinary object to create the safety they cannot yet find within the conversation itself. Removing barriers. Removing barriers shows comfort because people naturally stop protecting themselves when they begin to feel safe. A person who is holding a bag across their chest may place it beside them. Someone who kept a laptop, notebook, or coffee cup between themselves and another person may move it out of the way. Without realizing it, they are opening the space between you because the need for protection is fading. This change often happens gradually. At the beginning of a conversation, the body may create small barriers while it assesses the situation. As trust grows, those barriers quietly disappear. The movement is rarely deliberate. It simply reflects a nervous system that no longer feels the need to stay guarded. You may notice this during first meetings, dates, interviews, or emotional conversations. Someone who initially sat behind a backpack or folded their arms around an object may slowly set it aside as they become more relaxed. Their posture opens, their gestures become freer, and the interaction starts to feel more natural. This does not always mean deep trust. Sometimes people move objects simply because they need more space or the item is no longer useful. The gesture becomes meaningful when it appears alongside other signs of comfort, such as relaxed shoulders, easier eye contact, genuine smiles, or more open conversation. The timing is what matters most. If the barrier disappears shortly after laughter, shared understanding, or a meaningful moment, it often reflects growing emotional safety. The person's body is becoming less defensive because the environment feels less threatening. When people stop placing things between themselves and you, they are often revealing something important without speaking. Before trust is expressed in words, it is frequently expressed through the simple act of removing the invisible shields that once made them feel protected. A leg pointed at you. A leg pointed at you often shows engagement because the lower body naturally turns toward what the mind finds important. While people can control their facial expressions and choose polite words, they usually pay much less attention to the position of their legs. That makes this small signal surprisingly revealing when it appears naturally. When someone feels interested in a conversation, they often angle one or both legs toward the person who has their attention. Even if they are sitting in a group or talking to several people, their lower body may quietly reveal where their focus truly belongs. The legs are following attention before the person consciously thinks about their posture. This does not always mean romantic attraction. A leg pointed toward you can simply show curiosity, respect, comfort, or genuine interest in what you are saying. It often appears during engaging conversations, important discussions, or moments when someone feels emotionally connected to the interaction. The strongest clue is consistency. If the person's leg remains pointed toward you, even while they briefly look at someone else or respond to another conversation, their body is still showing where their attention naturally returns. The lower body often stays aligned with what matters most. Watch for changes. If their leg gradually turns away while the conversation continues, it may suggest their interest is fading or that something else has captured their attention. If it turns toward you after being directed elsewhere, they may be becoming more engaged as the interaction develops. A single leg position never tells the whole story. Read it alongside eye contact, posture, facial expressions, and other body language cues. But when the lower body consistently points in your direction, it often reveals that the person's attention is genuinely invested in you long before they ever say it aloud. Knees pointed away. Knees pointed away often show escape energy because the lower body naturally prepares for movement before the mind openly admits the desire to leave. While people can force a smile, continue talking, or remain polite, their knees may quietly turn toward the direction they want to go. It is one of the body's subtle ways of revealing that part of their attention has already left the interaction. This happens because the legs are closely connected to instinct. When someone feels comfortable and engaged, their knees usually stay oriented toward the person or group they are interacting with. But when they become bored, uncomfortable, distracted, or eager to move on, the knees may slowly rotate toward a doorway, hallway, or another point of interest. The body begins preparing for departure before the conversation actually ends. This does not always mean rejection. Someone may point their knees away because they have another commitment, need a break, or are simply shifting into a more comfortable position. The gesture becomes meaningful when it appears suddenly during a sensitive conversation or is repeated alongside other signs of disengagement. Watch for supporting clues. If the knees point away while the feet angle toward the exit, the torso begins turning, eye contact decreases, or the person starts gathering their belongings, the message becomes much stronger. Their body is preparing to leave even if their words remain polite. The timing is what matters most. If the knees turn away immediately after a difficult question, awkward silence, or emotionally charged topic, that moment likely changed how the person felt. Their body is quietly creating an escape route before they have decided how to end the conversation. The lower body often tells the truth first. When the knees consistently point somewhere else, the mind may already be following, even if the person is still standing right in front of you. Stepping back. Stepping back often shows discomfort because creating physical distance is one of the body's first instinctive responses to emotional pressure. When someone suddenly takes a step backward, they may be trying to increase their sense of safety before they even realize why. The movement usually happens automatically, revealing feelings that words have not yet expressed. This does not always mean fear or rejection. A person may step back because they feel surprised, overwhelmed, intimidated, or simply need more personal space. However, when the movement occurs immediately after a certain question, comment, or action, it often signals that something in that moment made them uncomfortable. You may notice this during arguments, unexpected confrontations, overly personal conversations, or when someone enters another person's personal space too quickly. The individual may continue smiling or speaking politely, but their feet quietly carry them farther away. Their body is seeking distance while their words try to keep the interaction socially smooth. The timing makes this signal especially revealing. If someone was standing comfortably a moment earlier but steps back after hearing a particular statement or seeing a certain behavior, the body has likely reacted before the mind had time to filter the emotion. That brief movement can reveal discomfort more honestly than a carefully chosen response. Watch for other signs that appear with it. Leaning away, crossed arms, tight lips, reduced eye contact, or pointing the feet toward an exit often strengthen the meaning. Together, they suggest the person no longer feels completely at ease. A single step backward should never be judged in isolation, but when it matches the emotional moment, it often speaks clearly. Before someone says they need space, their body may already have taken it, quietly revealing the discomfort they are trying to manage without creating conflict. Moving closer. Slowly. Moving closer slowly often tests connection because people rarely reduce personal space unless they feel safe enough to do so. Instead of stepping close all at once, they gradually shorten the distance over time. Each small movement quietly asks the same question: are you comfortable with me being closer? The body is testing trust before words ever mention it. This usually happens without conscious thought. During a comfortable conversation, someone may lean a little closer, shift their chair, or take a small step forward. If the other person responds positively or remains relaxed, they may reduce the distance again. The connection grows one small movement at a time, rather than through one obvious action. This does not always mean romantic attraction. Moving closer can also reflect friendship, curiosity, enthusiasm, or a desire to hear someone more clearly. The important clue is that the movement happens gradually, instead of suddenly. The person is respecting boundaries while quietly exploring emotional closeness. You may notice this during meaningful conversations, shared laughter, or moments when two people begin feeling more comfortable with each other. Their posture becomes more open, the space between them slowly disappears, and the interaction feels increasingly natural. The body is following growing trust. Watch for the response. If the other person also moves closer or stays relaxed, the connection is likely mutual. If they step back or create distance, the first person often stops moving forward immediately. The body is constantly reading silent feedback. The timing is what makes this gesture meaningful. When someone slowly closes the distance instead of keeping it the same, they are often expressing interest without saying it directly. Before trust is spoken aloud, it is frequently measured through small, careful movements that quietly ask whether the other person is ready to come closer too. A sudden step closer. A sudden step closer often shows urgency or dominance because it changes the amount of personal space without warning. When someone unexpectedly moves into your space, the body immediately notices. The movement can create pressure, demand attention, or signal that the moment has become more emotionally important. Sometimes the reason is urgency. A person may step closer because they are excited, trying to tell you something important, speaking over loud noise, or reacting to an emergency. In these situations, the movement is driven by emotion rather than control. They are focused on the message, not the distance. At other times, the step is about dominance. Moving closer can place subtle pressure on the other person, forcing them to either hold their ground or step back. Some people use this unconsciously during disagreements, negotiations, or confrontations. They reduce the distance to gain influence or make their presence feel stronger without raising their voice. This does not always mean aggression. Cultural norms, crowded environments, and individual habits can also affect how close people stand. That is why the movement should always be read alongside facial expressions, tone of voice, and the overall situation. Watch what happens after the step. If the person relaxes, smiles, or lowers their voice, the movement may simply reflect enthusiasm or urgency. If they continue invading your space while maintaining a rigid posture or intense eye contact, they may be trying to establish control. The key is the suddenness of the movement. A gradual approach often builds connection, but an unexpected step forward changes the emotional atmosphere immediately. Before a single word is spoken, the body senses that the interaction has become more intense, more personal, or more demanding than it was just moments before. Too much laughter. Too much laughter can show nerves because people sometimes laugh to release emotional pressure rather than express genuine amusement. While real laughter usually matches the moment, nervous laughter often appears when the situation is awkward, stressful, embarrassing, or emotionally uncertain. The laugh becomes a way for the body to reduce tension without directly addressing what is being felt. This happens because laughter can calm the nervous system. When people feel uncomfortable, they may laugh after making a mistake, hearing unexpected news, answering a difficult question, or facing an awkward silence. The laughter is not always a sign of happiness. Sometimes it is simply the body's attempt to cope with discomfort. You may notice this during job interviews, first dates, public speaking, or emotionally charged conversations. The person laughs more than the situation seems to require. They may smile through serious topics, giggle after simple comments, or keep laughing long after everyone else has stopped. Their body is trying to make the moment feel less threatening. This does not always mean anxiety. Some people naturally laugh more than others or use humor as part of their personality. The important clue is the timing. If the excessive laughter suddenly appears during moments of pressure, embarrassment, or uncertainty, it is more likely serving as emotional protection. Watch for other signals. Nervous laughter often appears alongside fast blinking, fidgeting, touching the face, tight shoulders, or avoiding eye contact. Together, these behaviors suggest the laughter is easing tension rather than expressing joy. Laughter can hide just as much as silence. When someone laughs far more than the situation calls for, their body may be quietly asking for relief while trying to keep the conversation comfortable, even though they feel anything but relaxed inside. Sudden silence after laughter. Sudden silence after laughter often shows discomfort because the emotional atmosphere changes faster than the person expected. A room may be filled with laughter one moment, then become unusually quiet the next. That abrupt shift can reveal that something has been said, noticed, or realized that no longer feels comfortable. The laughter fades, and the body's natural reaction is to become still. This often happens when a joke goes too far, someone feels embarrassed, an unexpected truth slips out, or the mood suddenly changes. The person who was laughing may stop speaking altogether, avoid eye contact, or become unusually still. The silence is not empty. It is often filled with thoughts and emotions they are trying to process before reacting. This does not always mean guilt or shame. Sometimes people simply realize the situation is more serious than they first thought. Other times they become aware that someone else has been hurt, offended, or misunderstood. The laughter disappears because the emotional tone has shifted. Watch the timing. If the silence begins immediately after a particular comment, name, or joke, that moment likely carried more weight than anyone expected. The nervous system often pauses before deciding how to respond. During that brief silence, the person's true feelings may be closer to the surface than their words. You may also notice tight lips, lowered eyes, crossed arms, or a change in posture after the laughter ends. These additional signals often suggest that the silence is connected to emotional discomfort rather than simple quiet. The transition from laughter to silence can be one of the most revealing moments in a conversation. Before anyone explains what changed, the absence of sound often reveals that something important has already shifted beneath the surface. Forced laughter. Forced laughter ends quickly because it is created by social pressure rather than genuine emotion. Unlike real laughter, which rises naturally and fades gradually, forced laughter often sounds abrupt, feels controlled, and disappears the moment it has served its purpose. It is less about finding something funny and more about keeping the interaction comfortable. People use forced laughter for many reasons. They may want to avoid awkward silence, make someone feel accepted, hide discomfort, or politely respond to a joke they did not actually enjoy. The laughter becomes a social tool instead of an emotional reaction. While the sound may resemble genuine laughter, the feeling behind it is often missing. You may notice this during workplace conversations, first meetings, family gatherings, or situations where someone feels obligated to be polite. The person laughs briefly, then their face quickly returns to a neutral expression. Their eyes rarely brighten, their shoulders do not relax, and the laughter leaves almost as suddenly as it arrived. This does not always mean the person dislikes you or your joke. Sometimes they are simply tired, distracted, anxious, or focused on something else. The important clue is the speed of the change. Genuine amusement usually lingers for a moment, while forced laughter often switches off immediately. Watch what happens after the laugh. If the person instantly changes the subject, looks away, becomes quiet, or resumes a serious expression, the laughter was likely serving a social purpose rather than expressing real enjoyment. The shortest laughs are not always the happiest ones. When laughter ends, almost as soon as it begins, the body may be revealing that the smile was offered out of courtesy, while the real emotion remained carefully hidden beneath the surface. Real laughter moves the whole body. Real laughter moves the whole body because genuine emotion is difficult to contain. When someone truly finds something funny, the reaction spreads far beyond the mouth. Their shoulders bounce, their chest rises and falls, their eyes narrow naturally, and their posture becomes loose. The laughter feels spontaneous because it is not being controlled. The entire body joins the moment. This happens because authentic laughter activates multiple parts of the nervous system at once. Instead of producing a simple smile or a polite chuckle, the body releases emotion through movement. People may lean forward, throw their head back, clap their hands, wipe tears from their eyes, or briefly lose control of their posture. These reactions are usually impossible to fake for very long. You may notice this during conversations with close friends, unexpected jokes, or moments of pure amusement. The person is no longer thinking about how they appear. They are fully absorbed in the emotion. Their laughter continues naturally, then slowly fades while the smile remains on their face. This does not mean everyone laughs loudly. Some people laugh quietly, but even then, their shoulders, breathing, eyes, and facial muscles usually reveal that the emotion is genuine. The body rarely stays completely still during authentic laughter. Watch what happens after the laugh. Genuine amusement often leaves behind relaxed muscles, easier breathing, and a lingering smile. The person looks lighter because the emotion has been fully expressed rather than carefully managed. Real laughter cannot easily be confined to the face. When joy is authentic, it spreads through posture, movement, and breathing. Before the person says they enjoyed the moment, their entire body has already revealed the truth in a way that words alone never could. A smile that drops fast. A smile that drops fast may be performed because genuine emotion usually fades naturally, not instantly. When a real smile appears, it grows gradually, softens the entire face, and often remains for a moment, even after the reason for smiling has passed. A performed smile, however, can seem to switch off the instant it is no longer needed, as though someone has ended a performance. This happens because social smiles are often created on purpose. A person may smile to greet someone, avoid awkwardness, appear friendly, or hide what they are really feeling. Once the social obligation is over, the smile disappears immediately, revealing a more neutral or even tense expression underneath. You may notice this during introductions, formal meetings, customer interactions, or conversations where someone is trying to make a good impression. They smile while being watched, but the moment attention shifts elsewhere, their face quickly returns to normal. The change can be so fast that it feels almost mechanical. This does not always mean the person is being dishonest. Many polite smiles are sincere acts of courtesy rather than expressions of happiness. The important clue is not that the smile disappears, but how suddenly it disappears. Genuine emotion usually lingers, while performed emotion often ends abruptly. Watch the transition. If the smile vanishes the instant the conversation pauses or eye contact breaks, it may have been serving a social purpose instead of expressing genuine feeling. Look at the eyes, posture, and tone to see whether the rest of the body stays warm or becomes distant. A quickly fading smile is not proof of hidden motives, but it often reveals that the expression was managed rather than spontaneous. The mouth may have smiled, yet the emotion behind it may never have fully arrived. Hair touching. Hair touching often shows self-awareness because people become more conscious of themselves when they feel noticed. Without thinking, they may brush their hair back, tuck it behind an ear, smooth it with their fingers, or adjust it repeatedly. The movement often appears when attention suddenly shifts toward them, revealing that they are aware of how they are being perceived. This reaction is usually unconscious. When people feel observed, attracted, nervous, or slightly uncomfortable, they often begin making small grooming movements. Touching the hair becomes a way of regaining composure while also checking their appearance. The body is quietly preparing itself for social evaluation. You may notice this during first meetings, interviews, presentations, or conversations with someone they want to impress. The person may continue speaking normally, yet their hand repeatedly returns to their hair. The gesture is often less about fixing the hair and more about managing the emotions that come with being seen. This does not always mean attraction. Hair touching can also happen because of habit, boredom, wind, or simple physical discomfort. The key is the timing. If the movement begins immediately after eye contact, a compliment, or a personal question, it often reflects heightened self-awareness rather than a random habit. Watch for repetition. A single adjustment means very little, but frequent hair touching during emotionally important moments can suggest the person is becoming more conscious of themselves and the impression they are making. Hair touching is one of the body's quiet grooming signals. Before someone admits they feel nervous, flattered, or emotionally exposed, their hand may already be reaching for their hair. Sometimes the smallest adjustment reveals that the person has suddenly become very aware of your attention and what it might mean to them. Grooming gestures. Grooming gestures often show a desire to impress because people naturally become more aware of their appearance when someone else's opinion begins to matter. Without realizing it, they may straighten their shirt, smooth their jacket, adjust their sleeves, fix their hair, wipe their glasses, or check their posture. These small movements are often less about appearance itself and more about presenting the best version of themselves. This reaction is deeply rooted in human psychology. When people want to make a positive impression, the brain becomes more conscious of how they look. The body responds by making quick adjustments that create a greater sense of confidence and readiness. These movements usually happen automatically, long before the person consciously thinks about them. You may notice grooming gestures during first meetings, job interviews, important presentations, or conversations with someone whose approval feels valuable. A person may suddenly fix their clothing after making eye contact, straighten their posture before speaking, or smooth their hair when someone they admire walks into the room. Their body is quietly preparing for social evaluation. This does not always mean romantic attraction. People also groom themselves when meeting respected colleagues, authority figures, new friends, or anyone whose opinion they care about. The gesture reflects the importance of the interaction, not necessarily the type of relationship. The timing is what gives these movements meaning. If grooming begins immediately after someone enters the room or after attention shifts toward them, it often suggests the person wants to leave a positive impression. The body has recognized that the moment matters. Grooming gestures are rarely just about appearance. They often reveal that someone has become emotionally invested in how they are being perceived. Before they say they care about the interaction, their body is already trying to present its very best version. Better posture. When you arrive. Better posture when you arrive often shows they care, because people naturally become more aware of themselves when someone important enters their space. Without thinking, they may sit up straighter, pull their shoulders back, lift their head, or stand taller. These small adjustments happen so quickly that the person may not even realize they have changed their posture. This reaction is driven by social awareness. When someone values another person's opinion, the brain automatically pays more attention to appearance and presence. The body responds by adopting a more alert and confident posture. It is quietly preparing to make a good impression before a single word has been spoken. You may notice this in workplaces, classrooms, family gatherings, or social events. Someone who was slouching comfortably may suddenly sit upright the moment a particular person walks into the room. Their posture becomes more open, their movements more deliberate, and their attention shifts toward the new arrival. The change often happens within seconds. This does not always mean romantic attraction. A person may improve their posture because they respect you, admire you, feel nervous around you, or simply want to appear more confident. The important clue is that the posture changes specifically when you appear, not randomly throughout the day. Watch for supporting signals. If the improved posture comes with better eye contact, grooming gestures, genuine smiles, or body orientation toward you, the message becomes much stronger. Together, these behaviors often reveal that your presence has emotional significance. The timing is what makes this gesture meaningful. When someone instantly carries themselves differently because you have arrived, their body is often revealing something their words never mention. Before they admit your presence matters, their posture has already responded to it automatically. Blushing. Blushing shows emotional exposure because it is one of the few body language signals that people cannot easily control. When someone suddenly becomes embarrassed, flattered, attracted, ashamed, or unexpectedly noticed, blood flow to the face can increase, causing the cheeks, ears, or neck to become visibly red. Unlike a smile or a gesture, blushing happens automatically, making it one of the most honest physical reactions. This response is controlled by the nervous system, not by conscious choice. The moment a person feels emotionally exposed, their body reacts before they have time to hide it. They may continue speaking normally, but the color in their face quietly reveals that something has affected them on a deeper level. You may notice blushing after a sincere compliment, an unexpected joke, public attention, a personal question, or eye contact with someone they care about. It can also appear when someone is caught making a mistake or feels embarrassed by something they have just said or done. The trigger changes, but the body's reaction remains remarkably similar. This does not always mean romantic attraction. Blushing can reflect many emotions, including pride, nervousness, guilt, excitement, or simple self-consciousness. The key is to look at what happened immediately before the color appeared. The emotional context usually explains the reaction far better than the blush itself. Watch for accompanying signs such as looking away, smiling, touching the face, or becoming quieter. Together, these behaviors often suggest that the person suddenly feels emotionally visible. Blushing is difficult to fake, and even harder to stop. Before someone has a chance to explain what they are feeling, their body may already have revealed that the moment touched them in a way they could not completely hide. Hard swallowing. Hard swallowing often shows stress because emotional pressure can trigger physical reactions throughout the body. When someone becomes anxious, embarrassed, frightened, or emotionally overwhelmed, the nervous system may reduce saliva production, making the throat feel dry. As a result, the person swallows more noticeably, almost as if they are trying to clear away the tension they suddenly feel. This reaction usually happens without conscious awareness. A person may continue speaking calmly, but a visible swallow appears after a difficult question, an uncomfortable silence, or an unexpected comment. The body is responding to stress, even while the mind is trying to stay composed. You may notice hard swallowing during interviews, confrontations, public speaking, or emotionally sensitive conversations. Someone may pause briefly, swallow deeply, then continue talking as though nothing happened. That small pause can reveal that the moment carries more emotional weight than their words suggest. This does not always mean deception. A person may swallow because of a dry throat, illness, dehydration, or simply because they have not had a drink of water. The gesture becomes meaningful when it appears suddenly during emotionally charged moments or alongside other signs of tension. Watch for supporting clues such as neck touching, tight lips, fast blinking, shallow breathing, or a change in voice. When several of these signals appear together, the hard swallow is more likely connected to emotional pressure than physical discomfort. The timing is what makes this reaction important. If someone visibly swallows immediately after hearing a particular question or statement, their body may be revealing stress before they have chosen how to respond. Sometimes the throat tells the truth, long before the mouth is ready to speak it. A dry throat. A dry throat can reveal nerves because emotional stress often affects the body before it affects the voice. When people become anxious, embarrassed, frightened, or emotionally exposed, the nervous system may temporarily reduce saliva production. The throat suddenly feels dry, making it harder to speak comfortably. Before the person says they are nervous, their body has already begun reacting. This change is usually automatic. Someone may clear their throat, pause to swallow, take a sip of water, or briefly stop speaking as they try to regain comfort. These actions are often less about physical thirst and more about managing the effects of emotional pressure. The body is quietly responding to a situation that feels important. You may notice a dry throat during interviews, public speaking, difficult conversations, or moments when someone is asked a deeply personal question. Their voice may sound rougher, softer, or slightly strained. They may hesitate before continuing, not because they have nothing to say, but because their body is catching up with their emotions. This does not always mean anxiety. A dry throat can also be caused by dehydration, illness, allergies, medication, or a dry environment. That is why it should never be interpreted on its own. The timing is what gives it meaning. Watch for other signs, such as hard swallowing, lip licking, fast blinking, face touching, or shallow breathing. When several of these behaviors appear together during an emotionally charged moment, the dry throat is more likely connected to nervousness than to a physical condition. The body often speaks before the voice does. When someone's throat suddenly becomes dry during an important interaction, it may be quietly revealing the emotional weight they are carrying, even while they are trying their best to sound completely calm. Chest breathing. Chest breathing often shows anxiety because the body changes the way it breathes when it senses stress or pressure. Instead of taking slow, deep breaths from the diaphragm, the breathing becomes shorter and higher in the chest. The shoulders may rise slightly, the chest moves more noticeably, and each breath can seem quicker than normal. These changes often happen before the person even realizes they are feeling anxious. This reaction is part of the body's natural stress response. When the brain detects a possible threat, whether physical or emotional, it prepares the body for action. Faster, shallower breathing helps the body react quickly, but it can also reveal that the person feels tense, overwhelmed, or emotionally exposed. You may notice chest breathing during job interviews, public speaking, difficult conversations, arguments, or moments when someone is waiting for important news. Their words may sound calm, but their breathing tells a different story. The body is working harder because the nervous system has shifted into a state of heightened alertness. This does not always mean anxiety. Chest breathing can also happen after exercise, climbing stairs, illness, or other physical exertion. The gesture becomes meaningful when it appears suddenly during emotionally charged situations and is supported by other body language signals. Watch for fast blinking, tight lips, restless hands, hard swallowing, or a strained voice. When these behaviors appear alongside rapid chest breathing, they often point to emotional stress rather than physical effort. Breathing is one of the hardest body language signals to fake or hide. When someone's chest suddenly begins rising and falling more quickly during an important moment, their body may be revealing anxiety long before they are ready to admit how much the situation is affecting them. Deep breathing. Deep breathing often shows control because it reflects a person who is deliberately calming themselves instead of reacting emotionally. When someone takes a slow, full breath that expands the stomach more than the chest, the body begins shifting away from stress and toward relaxation. Rather than allowing emotion to take over, they are quietly regaining control from the inside out. This usually happens during moments of pressure. A person may pause before answering a difficult question, inhale deeply, then respond with a calmer voice. That single breath gives the nervous system time to settle, reducing the urge to react impulsively. The body is creating space between the emotion and the response. You may notice deep breathing before public speaking, during negotiations, after receiving upsetting news, or in the middle of a disagreement. Instead of raising their voice or rushing to speak, the person slows their breathing first. Their shoulders relax, their movements become steadier, and they appear more composed even though the situation remains stressful. This does not always mean the person feels peaceful. Sometimes deep breathing is a conscious effort to prevent panic, anger, or fear from becoming visible. The calm you see may not come naturally. It may be the result of someone actively managing intense emotions beneath the surface. Watch for the timing. If a deep breath comes immediately after criticism, an unexpected question, or an emotional moment, it often signals that the person is choosing self-control over instinctive reaction. Deep breathing is one of the clearest signs of emotional regulation. Before the person speaks, argues, or makes a decision, they give themselves a moment to regain balance. That quiet breath often reveals strength, not because they feel no emotion, but because they have chosen not to let emotion control their next move. Sighing. Sighing often shows frustration or overload because it is one of the body's natural ways of releasing emotional tension. A long exhale can appear when someone feels mentally exhausted, disappointed, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained. Without saying a word, the body tries to lighten the pressure that has been building inside. This reaction usually happens automatically when people face repeated problems, difficult conversations, or situations that demand too much emotional energy. They may let out a noticeable sigh before continuing. It is as though the body is creating a brief pause to reset itself before dealing with what comes next. You may notice sighing during stressful meetings, arguments, long workdays, family conflicts, or after hearing disappointing news. The person may remain polite and composed, but the sigh quietly reveals that the emotional weight is becoming difficult to carry. Their words may stay controlled, while their breathing tells a different story. This does not always mean frustration. People also sigh from physical tiredness, relief, sadness, or even deep relaxation after a stressful moment has passed. That is why the timing is so important. A sigh immediately after a difficult question, repeated interruption, or unexpected setback often points toward emotional overload rather than simple fatigue. Watch for other signals such as slumped shoulders, slower movements, tight lips, or looking away. When these appear together, the sigh often reflects an attempt to release built-up pressure. A sigh is more than just a breath. It can be the body's quiet confession that something feels heavier than the person wants to admit. Before they ever say, "I'm overwhelmed," their breathing may have already revealed exactly how much they have been carrying inside. Relaxed silence. Relaxed silence means comfort because people only stop filling every quiet moment when they feel safe with each other. In uncomfortable relationships, silence often creates pressure. Someone feels the need to keep talking, explain themselves, or search for the next topic. But when genuine trust exists, silence no longer feels like a problem that needs to be fixed. This happens because emotional safety removes the fear of being judged. A person who feels accepted does not worry that a few quiet moments will damage the relationship. They can simply exist in the same space without feeling the need to constantly perform, entertain, or prove themselves. The silence becomes peaceful instead of awkward. You may notice this between close friends, long-term partners, supportive family members, or people who have built deep trust over time. They can sit together, share a meal, drive in a car, or work side by side without speaking, yet the atmosphere still feels warm and connected. Nothing seems missing because the relationship itself fills the space. This does not always mean closeness. Some silence reflects anger, sadness, or emotional distance. The difference is in the rest of the body. Relaxed silence comes with easy breathing, soft facial expressions, natural posture, and a calm presence. Tense silence often brings crossed arms, tight jaws, restless movements, or avoiding eye contact. Watch how the body behaves during the quiet. If both people remain relaxed and comfortable, the silence is probably a sign of trust rather than discomfort. The strongest relationships are often the ones that do not fear silence. When two people can share quiet moments without rushing to fill them, their bodies are revealing a level of comfort that words alone rarely achieve. Sometimes saying nothing is the clearest sign that everything feels completely right. Tense silence. Tense silence often means resistance because the absence of words is filled with unspoken emotion. Unlike relaxed silence, which feels peaceful and natural, tense silence carries pressure. The room feels heavier, eye contact becomes uncomfortable, and both people sense that something important remains unsaid. The body continues communicating even though the conversation has stopped. This usually happens when someone is struggling with disagreement, hurt feelings, anger, disappointment, or emotional conflict. Instead of expressing those emotions directly, they become quiet. The silence is not a sign that nothing is happening. It is often a sign that too much is happening internally for words to come easily. You may notice tense silence after an argument, a difficult question, unexpected criticism, or a painful truth. The person may stop responding, look away, tighten their jaw, or avoid moving altogether. Their body becomes still because they are carefully controlling what they might otherwise say. The silence becomes a form of emotional restraint. This does not always mean hostility. Some people become quiet because they are processing information, protecting the relationship, or trying to calm themselves before responding. The meaning depends on the rest of their body language and the emotional context of the moment. Watch for supporting signals such as crossed arms, shallow breathing, tight lips, a rigid posture, or avoiding eye contact. When these behaviors appear together, the silence often reflects resistance rather than thoughtful reflection. The most revealing part is the atmosphere. Tense silence often changes how the entire interaction feels. Before anyone voices disagreement, the body has already created emotional distance. Sometimes the loudest message in a conversation is not spoken at all. It is carried by the silence that quietly reveals a struggle taking place beneath the surface. Looking away while listening. Looking away while listening can still mean focus because many people naturally break eye contact when they are concentrating. Instead of staring directly at the speaker, they may glance toward the floor, a wall, or into the distance while carefully processing what they are hearing. Their attention has not disappeared, it has simply shifted inward so the brain can think more clearly. This happens because maintaining constant eye contact requires mental effort. When someone is trying to understand a complicated idea, remember important information, or process an emotional story, looking away can reduce distractions. The brain temporarily gives more attention to thinking than to maintaining visual connection. You may notice this during deep conversations, problem-solving, emotional discussions, or when someone is receiving detailed instructions. They may briefly look away while you speak, then return their gaze when they are ready to respond. The movement is often a sign of mental engagement rather than disinterest. This does not always mean they are paying attention. Looking away can also reflect boredom, distraction, discomfort, or avoidance. The difference lies in the rest of their behavior. A focused listener usually remembers details, asks thoughtful questions, and responds directly to what was said, even if they did not maintain constant eye contact. Watch for supporting signals, such as slight nodding, a relaxed posture, thoughtful pauses, or accurate responses. These behaviors often reveal genuine attention despite the wandering eyes. Eye contact is only one piece of body language. Some of the best listeners spend less time looking directly at you because they are fully occupied with understanding your message. Before assuming someone is not paying attention, notice whether their actions show that your words are still being carefully received and thoughtfully processed. Strong eye contact. Strong eye contact can be confidence or performance because looking directly into someone's eyes does not always reveal the reason behind the behavior. A genuinely confident person often maintains comfortable eye contact because they feel secure and present. However, someone trying to appear confident may also force intense eye contact in an effort to seem powerful, trustworthy, or dominant. The difference is usually found in how natural it feels. Genuine confidence creates relaxed eye contact that comes and goes naturally throughout the conversation. The person looks at you, briefly looks away while thinking, then returns their gaze without effort. There is no sense of pressure because they are not trying to prove anything. Performed confidence often feels different. The eye contact may be unusually intense, rarely breaking, or held for longer than the situation requires. Instead of creating connection, it can feel uncomfortable or rehearsed. The person appears focused on maintaining the image of confidence rather than simply engaging in the conversation. This does not mean prolonged eye contact is always deceptive. Some cultures, personalities, and professions naturally encourage stronger eye contact. The important clue is whether it matches the rest of the person's body language. Watch for supporting signals. Relaxed shoulders, natural facial expressions, calm breathing, and easy movements usually suggest authentic confidence. Stiff posture, forced smiles, controlled gestures, or rigid facial muscles may indicate the person is consciously performing confidence instead. Eye contact should never be judged on its own. It becomes meaningful only when it agrees with the rest of the body. Real confidence feels effortless and comfortable, while performed confidence often feels carefully maintained. Before deciding what someone's gaze means, ask whether the rest of their body tells the same story their eyes are trying to communicate. Avoiding eye contact. Avoiding eye contact is not always lying, because there are many reasons people look away that have nothing to do with deception. A person may avoid your gaze because they feel nervous, shy, embarrassed, overwhelmed, respectful, or emotionally vulnerable. Looking away can simply be the body's way of reducing pressure during an intense interaction. One of the biggest mistakes in reading body language is assuming that lack of eye contact automatically means dishonesty. In reality, many truthful people struggle to maintain eye contact when discussing painful memories, personal emotions, or stressful situations. The conversation may feel so emotionally demanding that looking directly at another person becomes difficult. You may notice this during job interviews, public speaking, difficult conversations, or when someone is receiving unexpected praise or criticism. They may lower their eyes, glance to the side, or briefly focus on another object while continuing to answer honestly. Their attention has shifted, but their truthfulness has not necessarily changed. This does not mean eye contact is meaningless. Sudden changes in eye behavior can still provide valuable clues, especially when combined with other signals. However, avoiding eye contact by itself should never be treated as evidence of lying. Human emotions are far more complex than a single gesture. Watch the whole person instead. Their tone of voice, facial expressions, posture, timing, and consistency often reveal far more than where their eyes happen to be looking. Someone who avoids eye contact may still be fully engaged and completely honest. The eyes tell part of the story, but never the entire story. Before assuming someone is hiding the truth, consider whether they might simply be managing anxiety, emotion, or social discomfort. Sometimes looking away is not an attempt to hide the truth. It is an attempt to handle the weight of the moment. Widened eyes. Widened eyes often show interest or surprise because they are one of the body's fastest instinctive reactions. The moment something unexpected, fascinating, or emotionally important happens, the eyes naturally open wider. This reaction occurs before the person has time to think about controlling their expression, making it one of the more honest facial signals. From a biological perspective, widening the eyes allows more visual information to enter. The brain is preparing to understand something new, unexpected, or significant. Whether the emotion is excitement, amazement, curiosity, or shock, the body responds by increasing its attention to the moment. You may notice widened eyes when someone hears surprising news, meets a person they admire, discovers unexpected information, or witnesses something they did not anticipate. The expression may last only a fraction of a second before the face returns to normal. But that brief reaction often reveals genuine emotion before social awareness takes over. This does not always mean positive interest. Widened eyes can also appear during fear, concern, or sudden alarm. The important clue is what happens next. A smile, relaxed posture, and leaning forward often suggest curiosity or excitement. Stepping back, tightening the body, or holding the breath may point towards surprise mixed with fear. Watch the timing rather than the expression alone. If the eyes widen immediately after a particular name, question, or event, that moment likely carried emotional significance. The body reacted before the person had time to choose a response. The eyes are often the first part of the face to reveal what the heart has noticed. Before words are carefully selected, widened eyes quietly announce that something has captured the person's attention in a way that feels impossible to ignore. Narrowed eyes. Narrowed eyes often show suspicion or focus because the brain naturally reduces distractions when trying to examine something more carefully. Instead of opening the eyes wider to gather information, the eyelids become slightly smaller as the person concentrates on details or questions what they are seeing or hearing. It is a subtle signal that their attention has become more intense. This expression commonly appears when someone is evaluating a situation, listening to a doubtful explanation, or trying to determine whether something makes sense. The face becomes more serious because the mind has shifted from simply observing to carefully analyzing. Before they speak, their eyes often reveal that they are thinking critically. You may notice narrowed eyes during negotiations, difficult conversations, problem solving, or when someone hears a claim that seems unusual. The person may continue listening quietly, but their gaze becomes sharper and more focused. Their body is paying closer attention because something has triggered curiosity or skepticism. This does not always mean distrust. People also narrow their eyes to read small text, see something far away, or concentrate on a difficult task. Bright sunlight and poor vision can create the same appearance. That is why context is essential before interpreting the gesture. Watch for supporting signals. Narrowed eyes paired with a tilted head, thoughtful silence, slower responses, or carefully chosen questions often suggest focused attention. If they appear with tight lips, crossed arms, or a stiff posture, they may indicate growing suspicion instead. The timing is what makes this expression meaningful. When the eyes narrow immediately after a particular statement or unexpected event, the person's mind has likely shifted into evaluation mode. Before they reveal whether they believe you or not, their eyes are often quietly examining every detail for themselves. Looking at the door often shows they want out, because the eyes naturally move toward the direction the mind is considering. When someone repeatedly glances at the exit during a conversation, meeting, or social event, it can suggest that part of their attention has already shifted toward leaving. Their body remains present, but their thoughts may already be focused on what comes next. This usually happens without conscious awareness. A person may briefly look toward the door after the conversation becomes repetitive, emotionally draining, or longer than expected. The glance is often an instinctive check of the easiest path to ending the interaction rather than a deliberate attempt to be rude. You may notice this during long meetings, awkward conversations, difficult discussions, or social gatherings where someone feels out of place. They continue speaking politely, but their eyes repeatedly drift toward the exit. The body is quietly preparing for departure before any words about leaving are spoken. This does not always mean boredom or rejection. Someone may glance at the door because they are expecting another person, waiting for an appointment, listening for a delivery, or simply noticing movement nearby. That is why a single glance means very little. Repeated looks in the same direction are far more meaningful. Watch for other signs that appear alongside it. If the person also points their feet toward the exit, checks the time, gives shorter answers, gathers their belongings, or begins turning their torso away, the message becomes much stronger. Together, these signals often suggest they are mentally ready to leave. The eyes frequently reveal intention before the feet begin moving. When someone repeatedly looks toward the door during an interaction, their attention may already be searching for an opportunity to end the conversation, even if politeness is keeping them in the room a little longer. Relaxing after a topic change. Relaxing after a topic change reveals tension because the body often releases stress the moment an uncomfortable subject disappears. During a difficult conversation, a person may hold their breath, tighten their shoulders, cross their arms, or become unusually still. Then, as soon as the discussion moves to something safer, those signs begin to fade. The body quietly admits that the previous topic was emotionally demanding. This change usually happens without conscious awareness. The person may lean back, breathe more deeply, smile naturally, or begin using their hands again. Their posture softens because the nervous system no longer feels the same level of pressure. The conversation has become emotionally safer, and the body responds immediately. You may notice this during interviews, family discussions, negotiations, or conversations involving personal questions. Someone may appear tense while discussing one subject, then suddenly become more relaxed when the topic changes. Their voice becomes smoother, their movements more natural, and their facial expressions less controlled. The shift often says more than their words ever could. This does not always mean they were hiding something. A person may simply feel uncomfortable discussing painful memories, personal struggles, financial problems, or emotionally sensitive issues. The body reacts to stress even when the person is being completely honest. Watch for the contrast rather than the tension alone. If someone's posture, breathing, and facial expressions noticeably improve immediately after a specific topic ends, that subject likely carried emotional weight for them. The body often remembers what the mouth tries to manage. When someone visibly relaxes after the conversation changes direction, they may be revealing exactly where the emotional pressure was hiding. Sometimes the greatest clue is not when tension appears, but when it suddenly disappears, the moment the difficult subject is left behind. Early defensiveness. Early defensiveness shows sensitivity because people often react before a conversation has fully developed when a topic touches something emotionally important. Instead of waiting for criticism or disagreement, they immediately begin explaining themselves, justifying their actions, or protecting their position. Their body and words respond as though a threat has already appeared, even when the discussion has only just begun. This reaction usually comes from emotional sensitivity rather than hostility. A person may have experienced criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding in the past, causing them to become alert whenever a familiar subject arises. The brain recognizes the topic as emotionally significant, and the body prepares to defend itself before anything negative has actually happened. You may notice this when someone quickly crosses their arms, tightens their jaw, interrupts, speaks faster, or immediately says, "That's not what I meant," before anyone has accused them of anything. Their response feels unusually quick because the emotional trigger appeared long before the conversation reached that point. This does not always mean the person has done something wrong or is hiding the truth. Many honest people become defensive because they fear being judged, misunderstood, or blamed. Their reaction often reflects past experiences more than the current situation. Watch for the timing. If defensiveness appears almost immediately after a certain subject is mentioned, that topic likely carries emotional weight. The person is responding to what the subject represents, not necessarily to what has been said. The body often reacts before the mind has time to evaluate the conversation. When someone becomes defensive unusually early, they may be revealing that the topic touches a sensitive part of their life. Before any real conflict begins, their posture, tone, and expressions are already trying to protect something they value deeply. Repeating your words. Repeating your words often buys time because it gives the brain a few extra seconds to think before responding. Instead of answering immediately, a person echoes part of what you just said. They may repeat your question, restate your last sentence, or quietly say the key words back to you. While it sounds like part of the conversation, it is often giving their mind time to organize a response. This behavior is usually unconscious. When people face an unexpected question, a difficult decision, or an emotionally sensitive topic, their brain needs a brief pause. Repeating your words fills that silence while they decide what they truly want to say. The conversation continues, but their answer is still being formed. You may notice this during interviews, negotiations, serious discussions, or conversations involving personal questions. If you ask, "Why did you leave so suddenly?" they might respond, "Why did I leave so suddenly?" before giving their answer. Those few repeated words create valuable thinking time without making the pause feel awkward. This does not always mean deception. Honest people also repeat questions when they are carefully choosing their words, making sure they understood correctly, or trying to give an accurate answer. The repetition reflects mental processing more than dishonesty. Watch the timing and the context. If the repeated words are followed by a thoughtful, detailed response, the person was likely organizing their thoughts. If they repeatedly echo questions without ever giving a clear answer, they may be avoiding the issue instead. Repeating your words is often the mind's quiet way of slowing the conversation just enough to think. Before the person reveals what they truly believe, they may borrow your own words for a moment, giving themselves the time they need to decide exactly how they want to respond. Touching the chest. Touching the chest often shows emotion or sincerity because people naturally place a hand over their heart when something feels deeply personal. Whether they are expressing gratitude, making a promise, apologizing, or sharing an emotional story, the gesture frequently appears without conscious thought. It is the body's way of connecting physical movement with genuine feeling. This reaction often happens when words alone do not seem enough. A person may place their hand on their chest while saying, "Thank you, I promise," or "I truly mean it." The gesture helps emphasize that the message comes from a place of personal conviction rather than routine conversation. The body is reinforcing the emotional importance of the moment. You may notice this during heartfelt speeches, sincere apologies, emotional reunions, or conversations about deeply held beliefs. The person's voice may soften, their movements become slower, and their hand naturally rests against their chest. The gesture often makes the message feel more personal because it reflects emotional involvement. This does not always mean the person is being truthful. Some people intentionally use chest touching to appear sincere and gain trust. That is why the gesture should never be judged on its own. Its meaning becomes much stronger when it matches relaxed facial expressions, natural timing, and consistent behavior. Watch for the context. If the hand reaches the chest immediately after expressing appreciation, regret, or a deeply personal thought, it often reflects authentic emotion. If the gesture appears exaggerated or feels rehearsed, it may be serving a social purpose instead. The hand over the chest is one of the body's oldest symbols of personal meaning. Before someone says, "This really matters to me," their gesture may already be communicating that the message comes from a place of genuine emotional importance rather than empty words alone. Finger pointing. Finger pointing often shows blame or control because it directs attention with force rather than invitation. When someone points directly at another person, the gesture can feel commanding, accusatory, or confrontational. Even before any words are spoken, the body is establishing authority or assigning responsibility. This reaction commonly appears during disagreements, criticism, instructions, or emotionally charged conversations. A pointed finger narrows the focus onto one person or one issue. Instead of encouraging discussion, it often creates pressure. The person using the gesture may be trying to influence the conversation, reinforce their position, or make their message feel more powerful. This does not always mean anger. Teachers, coaches, presenters, and leaders sometimes point simply to emphasize important information or direct someone's attention. The gesture becomes more emotionally significant when it is aimed directly at a person during conflict rather than at an object or location. You may notice finger pointing alongside a louder voice, a rigid posture, narrowed eyes, or stepping closer. Together, these signals often suggest that the person wants to take control of the interaction or make someone feel accountable. The gesture can increase tension because people instinctively perceive being pointed at as a personal challenge. Watch the timing. If the finger appears immediately after disagreement, criticism, or frustration, it often reflects rising emotional intensity. If it is used calmly while explaining directions or highlighting something specific, the meaning is much less confrontational. A pointed finger carries more emotional weight than many people realize. Before someone openly says, "This is your responsibility," or "Listen to me," their hand may already be delivering that message. The gesture often reveals an attempt to influence, direct, or assign responsibility long before the conversation reaches its conclusion. Open hand gestures. Open hand gestures feel cooperative because they naturally communicate openness instead of control. When people speak with relaxed, visible hands and open palms, they often appear more approachable, trustworthy, and willing to work with others. Rather than directing or demanding, their movements invite conversation and shared understanding. This happens because open hands have long been associated with peaceful intentions. Showing empty hands historically signaled that a person carried no weapon and posed no immediate threat. Even today, the brain unconsciously connects open-handed gestures with honesty, safety, and friendliness. Before a single word is judged, the body is already shaping how the message feels. You may notice these gestures during productive discussions, sincere explanations, negotiations, or conversations where someone wants to build trust. Their hands move naturally, their fingers remain relaxed, and their gestures support their words without appearing forceful. The overall impression is one of confidence without aggression. This does not always mean the person is truthful. Skilled speakers, salespeople, and persuasive communicators often use open hand gestures because they know these movements create a stronger sense of connection. That is why the gesture should always be considered alongside facial expressions, tone of voice, and consistent behavior. Watch the rhythm of the movement. Genuine open hand gestures usually flow naturally with speech instead of looking rehearsed. They appear effortless because the person's body is expressing ideas rather than managing an image. Open hands often reduce emotional distance before trust has even been earned. When someone's gestures consistently invite rather than pressure, the conversation tends to feel safer and more collaborative. Sometimes the way a person moves their hands quietly determines whether others feel defensive or genuinely willing to listen. A raised chin. A raised chin often shows pride or protection because it changes the way a person presents themselves to the world. Lifting the chin can make someone appear taller, more confident, and more difficult to challenge. Sometimes this reflects genuine self-confidence. Other times, it is a protective posture designed to hide insecurity or emotional vulnerability. This gesture often appears when people want to project strength. During moments of criticism, competition, or confrontation, raising the chin can become the body's way of saying, "I won't let this affect me." Even if the person feels hurt inside, their posture may be trying to communicate confidence and control. You may notice a raised chin during debates, interviews, leadership situations, or conversations where someone feels the need to defend their reputation. Their head lifts slightly, their shoulders become firmer, and their gaze remains steady. The body is creating an image of resilience, whether that confidence is genuine or carefully maintained. This does not always mean arrogance. Some people naturally carry their head higher because of posture, habit, or physical build. The gesture becomes meaningful when it appears suddenly during emotionally significant moments or after being challenged. Watch for the rest of the body. A raised chin paired with relaxed shoulders and an easy smile often reflects authentic confidence. A raised chin combined with a clenched jaw, stiff neck, or narrowed eyes may suggest the person is protecting themselves behind an appearance of strength. The chin is a small part of the body, but it can reveal a great deal about a person's emotional state. Before someone openly admits feeling proud, challenged, or defensive, they may quietly lift their head, allowing posture to express what words are still trying to conceal. Lowered chin with upward eyes. Lowered chin with upward eyes often shows suspicion because it combines a protective posture with careful observation. The head drops slightly while the eyes continue looking upward at the other person. This creates the impression that someone is watching closely without becoming fully open or relaxed. The body is staying guarded while the mind quietly evaluates what is happening. This expression often appears when a person is uncertain about someone's intentions, questioning what they have heard, or trying to decide whether they should trust the situation. Instead of facing the interaction with complete openness, they keep part of themselves emotionally protected. Their eyes continue gathering information, while the lowered chin subtly reduces their exposure. You may notice this during difficult conversations, negotiations, unexpected requests, or moments when someone hears a claim that does not completely convince them. They may remain silent for a few seconds, keep their chin lowered, and study the speaker carefully before responding. Their body is asking questions long before their mouth does. This does not always mean suspicion. Some people naturally lower their chin while thinking, reading, or listening carefully. The gesture becomes more meaningful when it appears suddenly after a surprising statement, an inconsistent explanation, or a sensitive topic. The timing often reveals that something has triggered closer evaluation. Watch for supporting signals such as narrowed eyes, tight lips, a tilted head, or slower responses. When these behaviors appear together, the lowered chin often reflects cautious judgment rather than simple concentration. The face often reveals curiosity before certainty. When someone lowers their chin but continues watching you from beneath their eyebrows, they may be silently testing your words, your intentions, or the situation itself before deciding whether to believe what they are seeing or hearing. Shrugging. Shrugging often shows uncertainty because it is one of the body's clearest ways of expressing, "I don't know," or "I'm not sure." When the shoulders lift, the palms may turn upward and the head tilts slightly. The gesture quietly communicates hesitation or a lack of confidence in what is being said. It often appears before the person has fully decided what they believe or how they want to respond. This movement is usually automatic. When people cannot explain something, remember an answer, or feel unsure about a situation, their shoulders rise almost instinctively. The body is revealing uncertainty before the mouth has finished forming the words. You may notice shrugging during conversations about unfamiliar topics, unexpected questions, or situations where someone is trying to avoid making a firm commitment. A person may say, "Maybe, I guess," or "I'm not sure," while their shoulders lift at the same time. Their body and words are working together to express uncertainty. This does not always mean confusion. Some people shrug to show they do not care, to avoid conflict, or to communicate acceptance of something they cannot control. The meaning depends on the situation and the emotions surrounding the gesture. Watch for supporting signals. A shrug paired with raised eyebrows, open palms, or a puzzled expression often reflects genuine uncertainty. If it appears with a smile or relaxed posture, It may simply communicate indifference rather than doubt. The shoulders often speak before the mind reaches a conclusion. When someone shrugs naturally during an important moment, they are usually revealing that they have not fully settled on an answer. Before certainty appears in their words, their body has already admitted that they are still searching for it. One-sided shrugging. One-sided shrugging often shows partial doubt because the body expresses uncertainty unevenly. Instead of both shoulders rising together, only one shoulder lifts while the other remains still. This subtle imbalance can suggest that the person is only partly convinced by what they are saying or hearing. Their body is not fully committing to the message. This gesture usually appears when someone feels conflicted. They may believe part of what they are saying, but still have unanswered questions or lingering hesitation. The uneven shrug reflects an incomplete sense of certainty. Rather than expressing total confidence or complete uncertainty, the body settles somewhere in between. You may notice this during conversations involving opinions, predictions, or explanations that the person cannot fully verify. They may say, "I think so," "probably," or "maybe," while one shoulder briefly rises. Their words sound moderately confident, but their posture quietly admits that they are not completely sure. This does not always mean the person is hiding something. Some people naturally move one side of their body more than the other, especially when speaking with emotion or using one dominant hand. The gesture becomes more meaningful when it appears suddenly during a specific topic or emotionally important moment. Watch for supporting signals such as hesitant speech, looking away while answering, or pauses before responding. When these behaviors appear together, the one-sided shrug often reflects genuine uncertainty rather than habit. The body rarely moves unevenly without a reason. When only one shoulder rises during an important statement, it can quietly reveal that the person's confidence is incomplete. Before they openly admit their doubts, their posture may already be showing that part of them remains unconvinced by the answer they have just given. Confident words with shrinking gestures. Confident words with shrinking gestures often show insecurity because the message and the body are telling different stories. A person may speak with certainty, make bold claims, or insist they are completely confident, yet their posture quietly becomes smaller. Their shoulders pull inward, their elbows stay close to their body, and their movements become limited. While their voice projects strength, their body reveals hesitation. This mismatch is important because genuine confidence usually appears in both speech and posture. When people truly believe in themselves, they rarely need to force confidence through words alone. Their body naturally remains open, relaxed, and comfortable. When the posture shrinks despite confident language, it may suggest that the person is trying to convince themselves as much as everyone else. You may notice this during interviews, presentations, negotiations, or moments when someone feels the need to prove their value. They confidently describe their abilities, but avoid taking up space, make smaller gestures, or lower their shoulders. Their body appears more cautious than their words. This does not always mean the person lacks confidence. They may simply feel nervous because the situation matters to them. Even highly capable people can appear physically reserved while speaking confidently under pressure. That is why the entire context matters. Watch for consistency. If the shrinking posture disappears as the conversation continues, the person may simply have needed time to relax. If it remains throughout, the body may be revealing uncertainty beneath the confident speech. The strongest clues often come from contradiction. When confident words are paired with protective body language, the posture may be quietly revealing emotions the voice is trying to overcome. Before believing either the words or the gestures, notice which one remains consistent as the conversation unfolds. Brief touch. Brief touch can build connection because appropriate, welcome physical contact often creates a greater sense of closeness than words alone. A light touch on the shoulder, a handshake, or a gentle pat on the arm can quietly communicate warmth, support, or encouragement. When it is natural and appropriate for the relationship and situation, it can make an interaction feel more personal. This happens because physical touch is closely connected to human bonding. From childhood, safe and caring touch helps people feel comforted and accepted. As adults, brief, respectful touch can still communicate trust, empathy, and reassurance without interrupting the conversation. The body often understands kindness before the mind has fully processed it. You may notice this between close friends, family members, supportive coworkers, or teammates celebrating a success. Someone may briefly touch another person's arm while expressing sympathy, offering congratulations, or emphasizing a sincere point. The gesture is usually short and relaxed, making it feel natural rather than intrusive. This does not always mean affection or romantic interest. Many brief touches simply reflect friendliness, encouragement, or cultural customs. What matters most is whether the touch is appropriate, welcomed, and consistent with the relationship. Unwanted or poorly timed touch can have the opposite effect, creating discomfort instead of connection. Watch the response. If the other person smiles, remains relaxed, or naturally continues the interaction, the touch was likely received positively. If they pull away, tense up, or create distance, their body may be signaling that the contact was not welcome. A brief touch is often a quiet form of communication. When it is respectful and appropriate, it can strengthen trust and emotional closeness. Before people express support with words, they sometimes communicate it through a simple gesture that says, "You are not alone." First reactions. First reactions are often the most honest because they happen before the mind has time to manage them. A brief smile, widened eyes, a raised eyebrow, a quick frown, or a sudden change in posture can appear within a fraction of a second after something is seen or heard. These immediate responses are often driven by instinct rather than careful thought, making them especially revealing. The brain processes emotion incredibly quickly. Before a person decides what expression they want to show, the body may already have displayed what they genuinely felt. A surprise announcement, unexpected question, or emotional revelation can trigger a reaction that appears and disappears almost instantly. That brief moment often reflects authentic emotion before social awareness takes over. You may notice this when someone receives unexpected news, meets a person they were not expecting, hears a compliment, or is asked a difficult question. Their face may briefly reveal shock, happiness, disappointment, or concern before returning to a more controlled expression. The first reaction often tells a different story than the one that follows. This does not always mean the first reaction tells the complete truth. People can have mixed emotions, and an initial response may quickly change as they think more carefully about the situation. The first expression reveals the immediate emotional impact, not necessarily the person's final opinion. Watch the timing rather than the duration. A reaction that appears instantly and fades just as quickly often carries more meaning than an expression that develops several seconds later. The body is usually fastest before the mind takes control. Those first few moments can reveal genuine emotion that later becomes softened, hidden, or explained away. Before words have a chance to shape the story, the body has often already shared its most instinctive response. One gesture means little. Repeated patterns reveal the truth. One gesture means little because body language is never a reliable code on its own. A crossed arm, a glance away, a sigh, or a nervous smile can have dozens of different meanings depending on the person and the situation. The biggest mistake people make is assuming that one movement reveals someone's true thoughts. In reality, human behavior is far more complex than a single gesture. The real clues appear through patterns. When the same behaviors repeat under similar circumstances, they become much more meaningful. If someone consistently points their feet toward the exit during difficult conversations, repeatedly touches their face whenever a certain topic arises, or always relaxes after one particular subject changes, those repeated reactions deserve attention. The body is showing a habit rather than a coincidence. This is why skilled observers rarely make instant judgments. Instead of focusing on one movement, they watch for changes from a person's normal behavior. They compare posture, facial expressions, gestures, breathing, tone of voice, and timing. When several signals tell the same story again and again, confidence in the interpretation becomes much stronger. This does not mean patterns are absolute proof. Personality, culture, physical discomfort, and individual habits all influence body language. Even repeated behaviors should be understood within the context of the situation. The goal is not to label people, but to understand them more accurately. The most reliable body language readers are patient. They observe before they conclude, looking for consistency instead of isolated moments. They understand that people are emotional, unpredictable, and capable of sending mixed signals. The greatest secret of reading people is not finding one magical gesture. It is recognizing that truth usually appears through repeated patterns over time. The body rarely reveals everything in a single moment, but it quietly repeats what the mind struggles to hide.